I think could be for you if you're whether regardless of whether you're a senior attorney or a junior attorney, one of the more important webinars that you ever attend, just because of the subject matter and what I'm going to talk about today. And a lot of what we're talking about is things that have really been motivational for me in terms of even starting in this recruiting business and then helping people during my time as a recruiter. So it's the title is 7 steps that you need to take. There's really actually probably 8. So I think I would revise this if I were to do it right now. But just to give you an overview of what I'm talking about, when you get more than 5 years of experience in a law firm, and what happens is you start being a liability there. And so even though you're doing work and the law firm may be making money off you, if you don't have business, it just starts creating all sorts of problems in your career. And essentially what happens is instead of being in control, like you feel when you're an associate and a young associate and people are trying to hire you and so forth, you actually start losing that control. And when I say losing that control, I mean that you start having very little power. People that are older than you or younger than you it's easier for the firm to give them work because your billing rates are lower. If you don't have business, people become like almost doing you a favor, giving you work. And it's just a very difficult thing. And in my experience, when you get to that point, if you don't have any business, it can be a horrible existence for people. And I see people that are having problems with that all the time. And it can be very problematic. So that's what I'm covering today and talking about. One just aside that I'd like to give images and ways to think about this is when you're an associate and you're starting out, you're essentially like a soldier, and your job is to follow orders and to do things for people. But at some point, which is usually 5 or 6 years on, you're expected to learn how to transition into being what I would call a general, or someone that's able to control things and is bringing in business and getting work from people and then just directing people below you. And most people don't make that transition. And what happens is if you don't make that transition, you end up basically being an aging soldier, which is not good because you don't have the enthusiasm and the drive and stuff that many times you had when you were much younger. And so that's the gist of what I'm talking about today. And people don't like older soldiers. They like younger soldiers. And it's just how the business has always worked. And I'm not condoning this, but that's just how the business works. And so it's your job really to stay vital and to stay relevant and strong and to be able to essentially take back your power. And the only way to do that in a law firm environment is really to get business. And I'm going to talk about that today. And then if you don't do that, there's other things that you need to do. Again, my whole career has been about this idea, and this is how fundamental it is. I was at a firm, the second firm I was at in Los Angeles had ridiculous billing rates that were like New York billing rates. And I realized as a third-year associate, even though I was bringing in business, the amount of money I was charging compared to just other top LA firms was twice as much. It didn't make any sense for people to hire me. And so I realized if I stayed there, I would probably never get a book of business that was enough to have power over my career, at least at that firm in LA. And the first firm I was at had so much work that they actually didn't need people to bring in business. Now, it's not like that anymore. But when Quinn Emanuel was a very young firm, they had so much business. All they needed was soldiers. They wanted to make people partner, even if they didn't have business. They didn't care because they had so much work that was coming in. So I saw 2 extremes. One firm where it was impossible to get business. One firm where there was so much work they just needed your hours to make money. And so this whole thing just gave me the idea that didn't make sense for me to continue in a law firm. And that's one of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing today. This is a very big topic, and it really does control what happens to you in your career. And then, of course, when I got into the recruiting realm, which I'm at now, this whole thing I see all the time. I see attorneys that get senior and then they don't have any business and they want to figure out if they should leave their firm or they should go in-house. And so it's like clockwork. They're just contacting me every single day, big firms all over the country, faced with that dilemma. So this is a big topic, and it is very important. But more so, even if you're in a firm where you think everything's okay and you're senior, I'm going to give you a little bit of information and tell you why you may not necessarily be safe. And so nothing is really more important to your career than having business and knowing the steps you need to take if you don't have business. And again, not everyone has business. I'm going to talk about in future webinars, maybe in the next week or two, the importance of how to get business and how to get work. And I talk about it every webinar because it's so important. But when you get 6 years, 7 years of experience, you don't have a lot of business. And all but the healthiest firms, meaning firms with a lot of business, more work than they can handle, and they can make these people, they can make you a partner and pay you a big income, but it's not really a real partnership. You're just got this title and you don't have control over your career anymore. You become a liability and your job is at risk. There's lots of firms out there that have a lot of work and can make people partner without business, but the firm is still in control. And that's part of the problem that you face. And if you're in a situation in a firm where you don't have a book of business or any work, and you're getting senior and you're worried about your future, even if a firm does make you partner, they may make you like an income partner. And so you're still not really a partner in the firm. You're at the firm's mercy, essentially. And again, I just want to explain this to you, what happens. So if you're an income partner in a firm, even if you make partner in a firm, what happens is the firms will lay people off a lot of times that are income partners, or it's not secure. The only way to be secure in a law firm is to have business. Or there's other ways too, which I'll talk about in a minute, but to be secure and to have power over your career, you need business. Attorneys that don't have business and you get senior, these are the following choices you have. One is to go in-house, which is what most people do. It's just what everyone thinks about. Then the next one is to get business, which to me seems the most logical. Why wouldn't you just learn to do that? People can do that very quickly. I've seen some incredible stories of like people being like an 8th or 9th year associate and all of a sudden bringing in like Amazon or something. And this can happen, and it does. The other is to find a healthy law firm, meaning a firm with so much work that they can afford to make you partner. And maybe you're in some niche where you can continually work and you have a lot of employment security. The other is to find an advocate inside the firm with a lot of business, meaning to work with someone that already has a lot of business and to be the right-hand person. And if you look in whatever firm you're in, you probably will see that most partners have trusted partners, so that one partner is out there generating business, and then he or she has people that are partners, but they're just kind of partners in name, working right beside them and doing the work for them that they're generating. So one's kind of the relationship person that brings in the business, the other, and maybe is the front that goes out and maybe goes to court or whatever, but one is the work person that does the work. And the other is to wait for a better economic environment, which we'll talk about. So sometimes your practice area may slow down in a different type of economic environment, and that can affect you. The other that's fairly easy, and I recommend as well, if you don't have any businesses, you can always downgrade the quality of the firm you're working at or potentially start your own practice. And then the 7th one is to stop practicing law completely, which a lot of people do. And there's an 8th one that I'll talk about as well today. So these, and I'll leave it for the end, but these 7 choices are so fundamental to attorneys and career that I'm going to talk about all of them because these are the decisions that you need to make. So the format of the webinar is, this is a live webinar. Sorry, I'm a little tired today. My dog got run over last night, and so I was up all night. But these choices are very fundamental. So the format of the webinars, I'll talk about these 7 things, and then we'll take a quick break just for a couple of minutes, and then I'll come back and answer questions about this or any other questions that you have. If this is the first time to one of your webinars, one of my webinars, welcome. And if you've been here before, thank you for coming back. And again, most of what I do is a recruiter, because most attorneys are senior, meaning obviously people practice for 30 to 40 years. And then when they approach me, most of them don't have business, and most of them are more than 5 or 6 years of experience. So a lot of what I do is helping people make these decisions. And it's just a topic that I cover over and again. So as a preliminary matter, I just want to talk to you about and help you understand this question: how important is getting business in a law firm? Like, how important is that to your success? And honestly, I mean, there's, from what I've seen, and this is in 25 years of doing this, nothing is more important to your longevity and survival than an attorney than having business. There's just nothing that matters more. I'll tell you some stories about how important business is. The first one I know one attorney that's been practicing now for over 25 years. Since he was 6 or 7 years out of law school, he's consistently had between $1 and $3, sometimes $4 million in business. So a lot of business, and he's just he's good personality. He goes out a lot. People like him. And that's not a bad book of business. But like clockwork, he switches firms every 12 to 18 months. He's literally worked at least 15 firms, so many firms that when his resume, this is very funny, when you read his resume, it says he just puts his most recent employer. And then he says between these dates and just between this big 20-year period, have worked at some of the top firms in the country, including blah, 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 as a partner. And he might mention like 4 or 5 of them. He doesn't even get into listing them all because it's just so ridiculous. And it's very funny. Imagine having worked at 20 firms in 25 years, and you can't list 25 firms on your resume. So you just have to say, I've worked at some of these top firms, and you mentioned 3 or 4 of them. I mean, no dates. It's very funny, but this is a real resume. And this particular person has well-known substance abuse problems. I shouldn't even talk about this. And I wouldn't get in trouble for this because I know more than one attorney like this. So it's not, but this particular one I'm talking about likes to spend lots of money. He spends his free time with people that he shouldn't. And when he leaves firms, he generally upsets them. What happens is he's, just so you understand, he's hungover and barely late for appointments and just not good, just crazy stuff. And he just, when he leaves firms, he makes everyone mad and they just think very poorly of him. And he has enemies all around the city where he's worked and a horrible reputation for being a job hopper. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but no one cares about this because he can move to firms whenever he wants to. Now he started out working at the most prestigious, largest firms in the country. He's no longer working at those type of firms. They're all kind of mid-size or firms that are trying to relocate to the market he's in. But his reputation, his day drinking, all this stuff being seen with and literally publicly bringing, none of this matters. It's just not important because he has business. People will hire him. Firms need business, whether the firm's a large or small firm, or a prestigious or not prestigious firm. Firms cannot survive if they do not have business. It's just how the business works. They need people with business. If you tell a firm, I have this much business, now certain firms, you can't go to most prestigious firms. They're going to look at you and judge you and things, but smaller firms, yes, you can get into them. It's what keeps the lights on. It gives associates, attorneys jobs and keeps the higher ups employed. They literally, it's just insane. But you can go to interview with some of these firms. I'm not talking about all firms, but there's certain firms that they don't care about anything about your personality, or as long as you have business and you're not going to get them sued and they believe that, you're okay. And it's business is what keeps associates employed. It's what keeps higher ups employed. Here's another story. If a partner from some of these major firms, now I'm just using these firms because they're very prestigious, and this has nothing to do with anything I've seen from partners from Skadden or Gibson Dunn. These are just very prestigious firms. But if one of these people wants to move firms, you can make partner in these firms, by the way, in the most prestigious firms without any business. You can even make equity partner in some of the most prestigious firms without business. When I say it's important, it's at most 99% of the firms it is. These particular firms, if you make partner, they have such great institutional clients. There is actually hope if you don't have business with some of these firms. But for the most part, regardless, if you're coming from one of these firms, even if you're paid $3 million or $4 or $5 million a year as a partner and you don't have any business, everyone's going to ask when you're leaving these firms how much business you have. If you need to leave, if you're not getting along with people there, if you decide you don't want to work in the city or what, they're all going to ask this. And just so you understand how much an attorney gets paid is in most firms is related to how much business you have. So if the answer is 0, the conversation stops there. There's just no interest. It's no matter how solid your work experience is, firms need business, and especially at the partner level, they will literally there's nothing going on. They will stop talking to you. And I've seen partners from firms like this. And again, I'm not criticizing any of these firms. They're great firms, but they have their businesses. And it's like saying there was a bad GM car in the past. Who cares? I'm not criticizing these firms, but people's firms' careers can end if the firm decides they no longer have a use for them because they don't have enough business. There are people that make partner in in big firms, every big firm, not just including these, and things are going very well. And all of a sudden, people are like, why are we paying someone like this all this money without any business? It's usually what happens is the person makes partner when they're young because they're impressing some older people, and then they stay partner for a few years, and then younger partners come in with business, and they're like, who are these people? And that's just what happens. Or the business slows down and they want to bring in more top producers and there's not money to pay them. So they look at people without business and they're the first to go. So you're in danger. I'm just telling you, wherever you go, you can make partner at all these firms. You can make partner at any big firm without business, but that's not security, believe me. And it's whether someone who left the firm, which happens a lot of time, or died, or the firm lost a major client, or the firm restructured, but the firm decides to part ways with a partner. And that's what they'll do. It happens literally all the time. It's like a daily type occurrence, and it's something you need to be aware of that happens. And then the partner tries to look like mad to another firm. So what these partners do, it's not very funny, but it's funny, is if someone is at a very prestigious firm, they're under the impression that another very prestigious firm will hire them. And I place people like this, but for the most part, the odds of them getting a very warm reception are pretty slim. Most people are, and most of them without business, the odds of them getting to a significant firm are almost zero. It doesn't matter the brand of firm that they're at. It could be the best brand there is. If they don't have their own clients, they're in trouble. And they will say things like, when I get to this firm, I have all these contacts, I'm going to call these people and I might get business, but it never works out. And I have seen this so many times, and it's very sad. It doesn't matter how good the firm is. It doesn't matter, what law school you went to. It just is what happened. Just getting good legal work experience does not help you. So I don't know how much more direct I can be, but it's what happens in the market. And so you think, and so people think, I went to this great law school, I did well, I got into this good firm, I'm a third year, I'm getting great reviews. Whoa, that's fine, but that's not really what they're after. And again, no one's going to tell you what I'm telling you. The reason they're not going to tell you what I'm telling you is because law firms with big brands can always find people are applying with business to work there all the time. So they don't need to worry if you don't generate business. They've got plenty of people that will step in with business and work for them. They don't need to worry. When you're young and you're billing hours, that's all they need you for. They need someone to do the work. They don't care about you in 5 years. You're a soldier. You're someone that they're putting out there to march into war. And regardless of whether every soldier wants to be a general, that's not their concern. All they know is that the cream rises to the top. And if there's no cream there, meaning there's no one with business when they need it, they'll just bring in outside people with business. And again, no one is interested in partners without business. It's just how it works. And the partners know it. That's what's so scary. Partners without business that get into firms and they're there. And again, I don't want to hurt people's feelings if you're a partner, but it's a very scary position to be in because you're dependent on other people to give you work and you're not at the same level. I've seen federal district judges retire and come to me and say, I want to work at firms. I've seen famous bankruptcy. I've represented famous federal bankruptcy attorneys, famous federal, very well-known attorneys, and they don't receive the warmest receptions. They can bring them in as like counsel and stuff, but there's not really much. It's not good for them, and it's hard and it's demeaning. Imagine being a federal judge and then not being able to get a position. And the reason you can't get a position is because the game is about business. It's not about your intellectual ability or your authority or your law school. It's about business. I've seen partners inside of major firms in major cities, no business making. And when I say 500, it's actually a lot more than that. I would say 2 million, 3 million, even more, but I've had them. But the example that I'm thinking here is someone making about 800,000 and banging down my door trying to work in an in-house position in the middle of Texas because they want to be an authority, or in Louisiana, I had another one. And it's just anywhere they believe that their career is going to be safe. And they want to get a job where they feel like they're going to have some control. And if you don't have a lot of business, you're just in a very dangerous situation. And again, how much do firms care about it? they literally, and again, I'm not being critical of certain law firms. I don't want to, because people always get upset sometimes, but they'll hire people like that's what they want. And sometimes if you're someone without business and with business, you could be a mess, but they're still interested in you. And again, the attorneys with a few $1 million in business, and if they want to change firms, the discussion generally is just starts right off the bat, like first meeting. How much is the firm going to pay me based on my originations? What kind of percentage am I going to get? Which kind of support? It's all just a business discussion, and this is how it works. And that's what they talk about. I've had other examples. I was representing a woman not too long ago, and it was one of these things where she'd been at 7 firms in 10 years. And I'm like, this is incredible. And each firm she'd been at, she was just moving with the same partner. So he had business, and every firm he got to, they would agree to pay him a certain amount. And then after a year or two, they would try to cut his compensation, or he wouldn't get along with people. I don't know. And so then he'd move again. And same thing kept happening. And she was moving with him and with a group of other attorneys, and he had business. So this stuff happens, and it's entertaining when you see resumes like that, and you see literally the woman's resume was each move, a successive move was moved with this partner, move with this partner, move with this partner. And the reason people move for compensation reasons is firms will compensate people different amounts. So some firms, if you have $3 million in business, will give you 30%. Other firms might even give you 50%. That's what a lot of these virtual law firms do, or even more than that. Other firms may give you 15%. It just depends. And so the partners get compensated in different ways. Sometimes they'll get 25% of what they work on and 15%. There's just all sorts of formulas. And these percentages and things are messed with all the time. Sometimes they'll put in all these kind of other things that people don't like, and they move because of it. Like they'll say your ability to get along with associates, or or your contribution to the community. They'll put point values on this stuff. But this is basically how the systems work. And there's a bunch of different ones. All firms have different ones, but the most important one is always how much does a lawyer make? How much, is what they want to know. And then partners always, an important thing for you to understand as well, is most compensation systems in law firms compensate partners more money if they do the work themselves. So this is a very important point. So I want you to understand the significance of this. If someone does the work themselves, they're going to make more money. Clients would rather have a partner than a senior associate doing the work. A senior associate's compensation, out billable hour, starts getting close to the partners. So if a partner is giving a senior associate work, they're losing income because they're typically not getting as much money from the work that the senior associate's doing. Now, is that like that in all compensation systems? Of course not, but it's in a ton of them. And it's so fundamental to understand that as you get more senior, if your billing rate as a senior associate is $800 an hour, and if you do the work, the partner gets 15%, that's, what is it? That's 120. But if the $120, 15% of 800. But if he does the work or she does the work, they get 200, which is 25%. The economics work in favor of the partner doing the work themselves. And that's what they do. They try to hoard as much work as they can for themselves, and then they give the work to others. But if they don't have enough high-level work the client's willing to pay, then they would prefer to do all the work themselves. And then senior associates get iced out. So this is just an example of a compensation model. You can see if one partner, if you get if the model is you get 30% of what you work on and 15% of what others do. In one, if the partner A does all the work, they make $300,000 with $1 million. If partner B does none of their work and give it to others, they make $150,000. That's a lot of money. So the incentive for partners is always to do the work themselves. And as a senior associate gets more senior, their billing rate gets closer. And again, clients prefer to have the partner do the work because the partner has the relationship and is a presumed expert. And the other point is that in addition, the senior associate is doing the work, the partner's making less, and the senior associate's billing rate is close to what the partner's is. So it's very simplistic what this example I've given you, but it's always in the best interest for partners to do their own work. And then when a partner's showing the bills to the client, the other thing that they need to do is they try to make the bill look like they're being, even in the largest firms, like they're being very careful. So they try to make it look like a lot of the work's being done by junior associates, and with much lower billing rates. And theoretically, the idea there is it's going to keep the bills down. I'm not going to attack the law firm business model. I mean, it may or may not, depending on their efficiency, but they try to make it look like they're making sure that the bills are being controlled. Because again, you have to understand that a partner with a business, and I hate to give you so much business information here, but I want everyone to understand how this works. A partner with business with clients wants to make the client feel like they're not taking advantage and overbilling them. And so they will, when the client sees the way the thing was staffed and the way the work was done, the partner wants to be able to say, I had junior associates work on this to save you money. This is another way I saved you money. And then the partner will often present a bill showing them working very few hours at their astronomical billing rate compared to the associates. And that looks better. So I just want you to understand how that works. And then the other point is, as an associate gets more senior, if the senior associate is billing at their astronomical billing rate, it doesn't look as good for the partner because it's an associate and the billing rate's very high, and they would prefer to have the partner doing the work. And oftentimes senior associates need hours, so they bill more hours. That's just how it looks. So it doesn't look as good. And many times the partner would rather do the work themselves. Clients would prefer to have the partner do the work. And because of the relationship and also for the partner's sake, they make more money. So I just want you to understand the business economics behind this and how it's stacked against them. And I hope I explained that well enough. If I didn't, you can ask questions after. I know it's a little complex, but the idea is that if a senior associate's working on the work, the partner is making less money and the client doesn't like it as much. Again, junior associates and young associates are judged by the number of hours they bill, like how much more revenue they generate than their salary. So if you bill a lot of hours, it looks very good to the firm. So if you bill 3,000 hours and your billing rate's 1,000 hours, it looks very good. And they're also judged by how good they look on paper, your school's grades and so forth, because that information is also presented to the client. Clients love it when they know that someone from Harvard Law School or some top law school is working on their things with these great honors and grades. And then the partners are judged by how much business that they have, pretty much, and their hours that they were able to bill, their collections, like the amount of money they bill that's actually collected, the amount of work they gave to other people. And there's all these. And so when I talk to partners, they'll say, I billed this much. This was my originations. This is how much work I did. This is how much work I provided to other partners, other associates, and then the work that they do. If you're a partner, senior associate with no business, your job is in danger. Again, senior associates are judged by hours. Partners are judged by business. That's pretty much how it works. And so if you're a partner, senior associate without business, you're not even part of a paradigm, and that's the problem. That's the issue that you face, and it's a big issue. It's one of the most important and fundamental things to understand as an associate, and it's something that a lot of times people will bury their head in the sand, and they will pretend like this doesn't exist, but it exists, and you should be learning about and trying to get business and making mistakes and failing from the second you're an associate. That's exactly what I did. I did everything I could to get business. And even in some cases, embarrassed myself. I remember I was at a party, and there was some guy I was talking to that I think he was a general counsel of like something big, like Oracle or something. I don't know what he was doing at this party. I think he was there because his brother was young or something. And I went up to him as a second year associate and talked to him for 2 hours thinking he would give me business, and then gave him my business card, and there's no way that ever would have happened. But that was, and again, embarrassing. Yes, because I think I told him, give me your most complex legal matters or something. It wasn't smart, but I was learning about that. And so you need to make sure that this is at the forefront of your mind if you want to succeed in the law firm, because this is the game. And when people lose it, they resent the law firm and they resent the system. But the game is you're an apprentice, and then you're supposed to learn how to be an apprentice, and then you go and you get business, and then once you get business, you have clients, and the law firm supports you. But again, no one's going to tell you to do these things. I'm telling you that you have to if you want to stay happy and be in the law firm environment. Otherwise, you're always going to be a soldier, and it's very difficult for older soldiers because they're not as in demand. I'm sorry, but It's just how it works. And okay, I think that's enough for that for now, but I'll come back to this stuff. Your first choice is to go in-house. This is what most people do. As a matter of fact, people give up so early that they believe right away that going in-house is their only option. So a lot of times people will get into firms and start talking about how they want to go in-house from the second they're a summer associate, because the prospect of actually doing what you need to do, just get business, and the impossibility of it is so brainwashed to people, they think they need to go in-house. In-house people often just believe that the game is rigged, that they can't, there's no way for them to get business inside of a law firm, so they'd be better off going in-house, or because they're going to get more stable hours and so forth, and it's going to be better. I want to tell you a quick story. So everybody has things that make them alive. I don't know what it is for you, but there's different types of work that make you alive when you get in the zone. It could be, some people could write briefs all day and can't believe they get paid for it. Other people could work on corporate documents and patents and things and work all day and love it and get paid for it. And some people really do enjoy the work associated with the practice of law. It's work. But one of the things that really gets people into the zone, I'll just tell you, is when you have business and clients and you're like millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars of work coming in, and people are calling you for advice, and you're sought after, and you're getting referrals, and that's your job. Is you want to get into this kind of zone where you're happy and where you feel like inspired. And partners with business and work and a mission and all this stuff are inspired. They a lot of them love it. It's not, oh, I have to work all these hours. The stress often comes when you're doing work for other people and you're dependent on their moods and their goodwill, but when you have your own clients, you often get in the zone and inspired. Can you imagine? Think about it. Some of these partners that you know with business or work, they're in the zone and they love it. And it's not the hours that are killing them. They would do it for free. They're having so much fun. And that's what you need to be. That's the solution, is not to go in-house for more of the same, or what looks like a more secure version. That's what in-house attorneys are often doing. I'm not trying to be harsh about going in-house. I don't want to be critical of it, because it is a good job for a lot of people. But at the same time, the people that go in are often in those reasons to go in. A lot of times this statement, women who start a family or spend more time with their children, but that is one reason people do it. Now they want to have stability and be able to do things in the afternoon. I know one woman who's a very successful attorney in Silicon Valley that worked at a lot of big companies. And when she goes to work, and these are huge public, big names, think like Apple and things, where she's been general counsel, not Apple, but companies of nothing compares to Apple, but very big companies, like tech companies you would have heard from that are on your computer on most people's apps and things. And she has a requirement. I'm only going to work in the office 2 days a week. I'm going to take Fridays off to spend with my kids, and people go along with that in-house. I don't know if that would be because she's so good at what she does and has this narrow specialty, but this is what a lot of people do. Most people that go in-house declare that they're sick of the long hours, or they don't see any future in the practice of law. They don't like the hours in the law firm, and they may not have the overall commitment needed to practice law. I want to say one thing, and again, that it's no fun being a soldier. Like, no one likes being a soldier. So when you're an associate, you're a soldier. That means you're in the trenches doing the work that the generals don't want to do, which is busy work, briefs, writing, work. You have the stress and why not just become a general? And I'm going to talk more about that. I mean, no one likes being a soldier. So why would you go be a soldier somewhere else? That's pretty much what in-house is. And these are all valid reasons. And again, there's nothing wrong with not having business or whatever is required by large law firms. And you may have, a lot of people do have better lives when they go in-house. They do. And so I'm not saying it's always a bad decision, but once you do that, you're no longer playing the game. And again, I've seen some people go to work inside of hedge funds as attorneys and make millions of dollars. I was talking to one recruiter that places people in these types of jobs, and he couldn't believe it. Like, one guy within a couple of years got a $2 million bonus. Some people, if you become the general counsel of a major corporation, you can make incredible salaries that would, not salaries, but stock options and bonuses and things. And one of the reasons that when starting in the late 90s, people were going in-house at a lot of these .coms, and these companies were going public and they were making millions or tens of millions of dollars. And so everybody wanted to do that. That's one of the reasons the salary started increasing at places like Gunderson, I think was one of the first. So going in-house, it can be extremely lucrative. It can be like winning the lottery sometimes. And so there are reasons to do it. But I believe that it's often a very bad decision, and most of the time is. I talk to people all the time that are interested in going in-house, and I've seen lots of people that want to do it, even though in successful positions. So I was working with a fifth-year attorney not too long ago that had over $1 million in business. It really was probably $2 million, and he brought in a couple of major Las Vegas casinos as clients. He wanted to go in-house because he thought it was easy. Again, he was so brainwashed at being at a large law firm with everyone wanting to go in-house that it was amazing to me. And he was barely 30 and already had a book of business that was getting him attention from lots of firms. And I told him exactly what I'm going to tell you. Going in-house is like going to medical school, getting a job with one of the best hospitals in the country as a brain surgeon, then deciding to give it all to become a nurse in a small clinic. It's literally that different. And because you have no pressure to generate business, you're not doing the most sophisticated legal work. I talk to people in business all the time. I'm part of this group where there's all these successful business people and many far more successful than I am. And they have these big law firms working for them. It could be just examples of DLA Piper and big places like that. And then what they do is they have these attorneys, they're getting these bills from their law firms of $30,000 to $120,000 a month. And a lot of it is being done by senior associates and things inside of these firms or mid-levels. And so they do the math and they're like, oh, why don't I hire this person and pay them $250 or whatever, or $275, or they'll pay them and I'll save on these legal fees. So what happens all the time, I'm just telling you what in-house attorneys do, is what happens all the time. And again, I've heard this from multiple business owners. What happens all the time is when they hire these expensive attorneys and they bring them in-house, the attorneys come in-house and the legal bills, their outside legal bills don't change. Many times they go up. So not only are they paying this in-house attorney like $275,000 or $300,000 a year, but at the same time, their legal bills go up because the in-house attorney starts finding extra work to do and refers it to their firm or to their friends at other firms, and then says, "I'm not qualified to do this. It would be malpractice if you had me do this type of thing," and then figures out basically the in-house attorneys a lot of times will figure out how not to do the work themselves and then to give it to other people. And that's pretty much what happened. So people, the in-house companies realize that, and then they say, this is crap, and they get rid of them. So what on a lot of in-house resumes is when someone goes in-house, they'll take their first job and they might be there a couple of years. And then there's just like, boom, like all these moves and periods of unemployment. And it's just, I'm just telling you this as an observer. And so this is what happens when people go in-house. And when you go in-house, you're not always going to be surrounded by the best attorneys. There's a lot because a lot of them are giving work to other people. There's a lot less pressure because the important legal work is typically given to outside counsel and your habits. And no one's watching your work. There's not people overseeing your work. The other thing that's very funny is with in-house counsel is any work that they do, even if it's bad legal work, outside counsel will always say, this is great, or this is amazing, because they want to make them feel good and because they want to get more work. And it just doesn't matter. The problem with in-house is that when people lose their jobs in-house, it doesn't matter really where they are. The person could be at the top of their legal department, like the number one or number two people. And the law firms are not interested in them. So I see this all. I used to think like I would have someone contact me that was like the number two person at General Motors. I'd be like, my goodness, this person needs help, of course. And then I'd say, let's start with Detroit. And the firms are just nothing. Even though this person might have been sending tens of millions of dollars to 4 or 5 firms in Detroit, the firms are just silent. There's just nothing. Like, no thanks, no, we're not interested, just person's no longer working, and there's just no interest. And again, I'm not criticizing Detroit firms. I'm just giving you an example. It could be, but it's just what happens. And law firms are not interested in them. And you would think that the in-house attorney with all their relationships in-house, like all that would matter, but it doesn't. If someone goes in-house, the perception of the law firm is they've given up and what it takes to be a top performer in a law firm. And that's pretty much it. And the law firm world is very competitive. Gibson Dunn is like one example. I had one attorney in New York with this is years ago when this was written, but I'm just $4 million in business, and a firm called and asked what their billing rate. I told them was $750 or $785 an hour. And the firm, again, this is just a recruiting person inside the firm, but they said it was way too low and got off the phone. But this is a very serious game. And if you step up the fast track of a law firm, it's going to be very difficult to get back in. It doesn't happen. People are able sometimes to get back. Sometimes patent attorneys that go in-house that have a really good skill can get back in. Sometimes real estate attorneys can get hired. There's some exceptions when you go in-house, but it's rare. And so if you do think going in-house as a senior associate is a good idea, you need to think about this very carefully, because if you don't have any business, it may be a good option, but you just don't know. I just want to give you one other thing about in-house, and then I'll move on. The problem with going in-house is that it's very political. So companies will get, you probably see the news, they get new CEOs all the time. They'll get a new CEO like every 6 weeks sometimes, or every 6 months, or every once or twice. And when a new CEO comes, they typically want their own legal department that's loyal to them. The new CEO will often get rid of the existing legal department. It's nothing that you control. If something goes wrong, like you could have, I'm thinking of the example of the number 2 person I was representing at General Motors. All that happened to them is there was some complaint about seatbelts malfunctioning or something, and there were complaints, and so they, even though this person wasn't involved in it, General Motors let the whole legal department go, or most of it. That anybody that was associated could possibly have been tangentially associated with these seatbelts. So just weird things happen when you're in house, and it's very difficult to have employment security. Imagine losing your job. And this is the other thing that's just scary. And I'm not going to talk much more about in-house because that's not the point of this talk. But people like go in-house all the time in weird areas. Like they'll go Aurora, Colorado, or Detroit, not a weird area. But once you lose your job in some of these areas and you have a house and a family, there's no other in-house jobs. Sometimes it's very difficult. So this is the most logical thing you can do. If you don't have any business and you're a senior associate, the most logical thing is to get business. It's just the most logical path of action. Instead of feeling badly that you don't have business, or complaining, or finding reasons not to have business, all you need to do is get business. I don't understand why people don't understand that this is a priority. Once you have business, you're suddenly in control of your career path. It's not that hard. You just have to learn how to do it. If you think it's hard, then you need to concentrate on fixing whatever you need to do with yourself and your outside efforts to get business. And I want to be very clear that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your personality is. It doesn't matter. I remember Bill Urquhart, that was one of the founders he's no longer alive, but he's one of the founders of Quinn Emanuel, used to say that, Quinn Emanuel Urquhart, he used to say that the biggest nerd in LA also has the biggest book of business, which is it doesn't matter. If you have business, then you need to start learning earlier rather than later. The story of me talking to the general counsel of Oracle and thinking I could get business is ludicrous. Not the way I was going about it. If I'd gone and said, can we have some personal injury cases or something, he would have said, sure, but maybe. But you have to learn how to do it. And if you get business, firms are going to be interested in you, and you can move and you get where you want. When you have business, by the way, you're operating your own business. But this is what people don't understand. That's so fun about it. You have $1 million in business, you're doing all the work yourself. So your discussion with the firm is, can I keep 400 or 500,000 in exchange for you giving me an office, a brand, and associates to work on certain matter? If I get 2 million, can I keep 800,000? This is your discussion. This is what's so fun. And then if they say no, and you want to go to a firm that has more practice areas because you can refer work to them and make money, this is fun, getting business. And it's like having your own business. And it's being a general as opposed to a soldier. And this is what you need to do. You need to learn how to get business. This is what every senior associate needs to do so you're in control of your career. Why not? This is the whole point, by the way, of being an attorney. When you go to a big firm and when you're young or whatever firm and get a salary, you're not there to get paid. You think you are, but you're there because you're going to learn how to do this game, which is give business. And first you're going to learn how to do the work, and you're going to do this apprenticeship, which takes about 5 years, by the way, to learn how to be most practice areas. And then you're going to be in good shape. You're going to learn a craft as an associate. You're going to get good at it. And then you're going to go and you're going to get clients. That's what everybody's expected to do. That's how the businesses work for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so let me just say this again. This is the whole point. Like, the point is not to give up and say, I want to go in-house early on and have 10 different jobs as an in-house attorney and maybe go through all this. Or the point is not to say, I'm really good at doing my job and are good at my work and I'm making this huge salary. No, the point is to be in control of your life and your career, and to develop a craft and to be good at something and to understand business. And let me tell you something about understanding business. People hire experts. They don't hire people that do a bunch of different things. So anybody that wants to work with BCG, like, it's pretty simple. Like, I will represent and get jobs for anyone that's an expert. If you have a very good, I don't care what you do, you might represent railroads that get sued for accident. I don't know. There's people that do that, but any type of expertise is why people hire you. It's the same thing clients do. People think it's cool to have a bunch of crap on their resume that they've done. Oh, I did IP and I did corporate and I also did some litigation. And no, you have to have one thing, because that's what any client would want. I know people that have brought in some of the largest corporations in the world as young associates, and their whole strength was they were able to look like this one guy I told you earlier about representing casinos. That's all he does. But you have to have some sort of expert, and he does it in a certain type of gaming law. But what does it say about you if you don't have it? So I just want you to understand, to get business, you need to be an expert and look like you have a skill in something. Then you need to decide what you want your expertise to be. And once you do that, you're going to be in really good shape. So what does it say about you if you don't have any business? It says a lot. Partners inside of large law firms don't have any business will often say things like, and again, I'm not being critical of them, but I guess I am. They'll say, we only have institutional clients. It may be true, but it's not persuasive. The assumption is if you're really good, you're going to have business regardless of the firm you work at. The best attorneys out there, the people that are experts in things and enthusiastic about the work they're doing, are getting referrals, and clients are referring them. People are saying, wow. Judges are saying, wow. Other people are saying, wow. Their focus is saying, wow. Their expertise is saying, wow. Everything is. And so if you're good, you're going to get business. You have to be an expert, though, in something to get business. You have to, and then you have to get out there and tell people about your expertise. You can't just say that I'm this or that or do this. When I was a second-year associate, I had plenty of business. The reason I had plenty of business is I've always been the way I'm at. You think I'm taking legal recruiting and legal placement seriously? I was doing the same thing when I was an associate. I took everything I did extremely seriously, like you have to. Who would you want representing you if you had a problem? Who would you want doing your work if you were if you were a partner in a law firm? Would you want someone that was freaking all over it and the most important thing in the world to them? Or would you want someone that was just not taking it seriously? I take recruiting seriously because that's what I do. You have to take your work seriously. Being as an associate and sitting around and complaining about being an associate and wanting more money and more benefits and complaining about your hours, that's not someone that takes their work seriously. That's not someone that a partner is going to want to give business to. That's not someone that your peers are going to want to refer business to when they get older. They're going to refer business to the people when they go in-house. They're going to refer business to the people that they saw were freaking all over it and serious, because that's exactly how they want their work done. Think about it. What would you want? When I was practicing, I had plenty of business when I was young because I took it seriously. Everyone that I ever went to college with or high school or whatever always saw me taking things seriously because they know I do the best I can. I don't give up. I take everything I do very seriously. Now, again, this is not Harrison bragging. I'm just telling you that this is what you need to be if you want to be referable and have people give you business. You don't want to be, you have two types of people. You have complainers pretty much and doers. And you want to be a doer or a complainer. If you're a complainer, no one's ever going to refer you business, and you're going to basically have a life like that. You can sit around and talk about where you went to law school or whatever, but it's not going to get you anywhere. You need to be a doer. And who would you want representing you? Would you want someone representing you that was a complainer? And what would you want? Would you want that? Think about it. Or would you want someone representing you that says, oh, yes, I do IP litigation. I also do some corporate work, and I like tax. Is that the type of attorney would you want representing you? Or would you want someone that says, I do nothing but frickin' tax. I've got an M in tax. I love tax. I was doing first I was a CPA, then I decided I wanted to go to law school. Then I decided I wanted to get now. Then I've been doing tax ever since. And not only that, I'm interested in, I do nothing but nonprofit tax. That's in your do nonprofit. I can tell you a million ways that I can save you money. This is the type of people that people want to hire. They don't want to hire people that say, yes, I went to University of Michigan Law School. I was order the coif. And now I'm working at this big firm doing this and this, and I also went to this college. No, they don't. Again, they want people that are doers and out there. So people give work to people who take what they do incredibly seriously. This is the side you need to get on if you want to save your career and do well. You need to get on the side of someone that takes their work seriously. You need to be out there writing about it, talking about it, and be enthusiastic about it. If you do environmental law, you should be doing everything you can to write about it, talk about it, network with people and get in groups and things and look like the best fucking environmental attorney there ever was. And that's what you need to do. You need to have enthusiasm. And this is how attorneys get more business. This is what they do. They go out there and they look like they're the experts in something, and everyone gives them work. It's just how it works. If you don't, you're never going to get business. I will work and I will eat, breathe, and sleep this. And he meant it, meaning this is like he's taking on like a client, and it's like religious proportions. Like he's like all over it, and he's going to do everything he possibly can to make sure that this person gets what they want. Now, contrast that to a lot of other attorneys that are more wound up with their ego and like how representing a certain client makes them look. And you have to be all over it. And I left there to go to a firm where I thought my generating business was valued, because I figured, would I be better off in the rest of my career having business, or would I be better off going to a firm that had a ton of work? As it turned out, I probably would have been better off with the firm a ton of work, because I would have generated business anyway. But my choice at that time was to go to a firm that needed people would look like I could bring in business, but I didn't know about the billing rates and other things at that time. But I realized very early on, like meaning right out of the gate, that having business was one of the most important things for me, because if I didn't have business, I would be in trouble. And it's the most important thing any attorney can do. I'll tell you a quick story too, because of how important that was. Because I was able to go to a firm and generate business very quickly, I don't know how much work I had, maybe $200,000 or $300,000 in business by my third year of practicing law, and I knew that it would be at least close to 200 or something if I'd left. I was in a position where I could leave and make just as much money with my own clients very early on. Because I took it so seriously, and I was getting work because of the way I'm so serious. I was getting work from people that I'd known from high school and college, and not law school yet, but I did get a case from someone, but the point is I was getting business early, and that gave me security. That gave me the ability to basically walk in as a third-year attorney and decide I wanted to quit when I didn't like the firm and I thought that wasn't good for me. So this is what business gets you. You can take the business many times. You can set your own practice up, which is actually pretty dangerous, but it gives you the ability to be able to quit and start your own practice or do whatever you want, because you have a security that you wouldn't have if you didn't have business. If you don't have business, you have no security. It's the most important thing any attorney can have. It's extremely important. If a law firm tells you that you don't need business, that we don't need it, we have all these big clients, you should run for your life. It's the most dangerous thing not to have business possible in your career. Everyone needs business. And if you're switching firms, when you get more senior, you may even need portable business. The only thing that a lack of business will get you is an insecure future where you're at the mercy of others. And just so you understand how it works, I have firms all over the country when people are like third to fifth year now, asking me if the person has portable business. So people are getting business very early in their career. So if you think you're too young to get business, people are doing it now earlier. And the law firms are asking because they're seeing it. So they're asking, does this person have business? I can't believe it. Like I sit here at my desk and I get every firm, like when firms are asking questions about candidates, I see these questions. And then one of the questions is always, they have business. And I'm like, wow, like they're asking about a third year, a fourth year, a fifth year. And they're asking that because people have it. And so the only thing a lack of business is going to get you is just having a insecure future where you're going to be at the mercy of others. Meaning, if you don't have business, again, picture this. I'm a third-year associate and working in a law firm, and I have basically been able to generate about $300,000 or close to $300,000 in 1 year for my clients that will go with me wherever I go. I'm unhappy at my firm because it just seems like a freaking horrible place because had all these partners that didn't have any work and they were letting them go. So that was very scary for me, just being in a firm where you start and there's 10 partners on your floor, and then all of a sudden there's one. And you're like, what the hell's going on? This is really not good for my psychology. I'm going to leave. You can do that if you have business. You can go to another firm. And again, the people that made partner, Quinn's a much different firm now because eventually they started requiring people to get business because they can't go on forever. A lot of them left. Quinn's a nice firm. I don't think they fired them, but they left because they didn't have any work and it was very difficult. And now they're at smaller firms, a lot of them with no business, trying to make a living. And again, a lot of them, when the firm had work, were billing $3,000 a year, $3,000 a year for decades. And this firm, as all firms, eventually will start to change their compensation model, their expectations to give people with business the security, and the ones without it, no security. So all these people that at that particular firm, and as many like it, that didn't have work, were in trouble. And Quinn's a great firm. It's just that the reality is this is how the legal industry works. And if you think that your firm has a lot of business and everything's great and you don't need business, I will be 100% clear with you that the sun does not shine forever. The same thing happened at Quinn. It happens at every firm. And even if there's things are really good, it always changes. And firms will allow you to feel secure and believe that you can do lots of work for them as long as it suits you, as long as it suits them, but it just never lasts forever. If you don't have business, firms have so much control over you. They can pay you what they want within reason. This is literally a true story. Like, I receive phone calls from partners in major firms. Now, when I say major, I'm talking about, big firms. Like, a lot of times they're Midwestern firms and things that have offices in LA, and there's just different kind of expectations. But and this is, again, an older article, so it would be like maybe 300, 250 or something, but not very much. They pay them less than many junior associates in firms. And they do that because they can. I told this story, I think, last week, but I once saw a Los Angeles firm offer a real estate partner. This is when real estate was very slow, which was when the interest rates were very high in the early 2000s, and pay them $60,000 a year. So I remember asking that firm, are you kidding? And they said, no, we're the only firm with any work and we can pay them whatever we want. If you don't have business, it's very hard for people. I've seen people get divorced, many people without business. I've seen people have major psychological problems because of it, like people that were very put together. Suddenly, it's the game, man. It's just, if you're not paying the game, then it catches up with you, and it always catches up with you. Again, I have so many stories of people that just thought they were okay and just did the work and impressed people being soldiers. And then without business, this is what happens. And if you don't have any business, you just don't have any power. You can't move firms. You can't forecast your future compensation. You could be asked to leave at any time. You can be pushed around and treated poorly. They can cut your compensation. There's nothing you can do. I remember there was a guy, and these are old compensation models. So now it'd probably be, 400 or 500, because this is a long time ago. But I remember this guy was living in a 600 square foot studio apartment with his wife in downtown Los Angeles, making $200,000 a year. With that, and basically think about that now, he'd be making probably 500 or something, or maybe a little bit more, and living in the same type of apartment. But he would eat packaged noodles for lunch to save money on the weekends. It was funny. His wife would come in and she would cook noodles and things for him. It was just, but he would eat packaged noodles. And I was like, why are you living like this? I was like, what's going on? Like, why are you living in this? He was a guy that originally, I think, been at Paul Hastings. And I said, why are you living like this? And he said, because I've been doing this long enough to know that I could lose my job any day and not be able to find a new one. I don't have any business. So he was basically trying to save everything he made. And the only security you're ever going to truly find comes from getting business. Teaching you how to get business is not what I'm going to talk about today, but I do need to really emphasize this point for you. If I get through to you and make you understand that this is the only thing that matters, then you're going to hopefully change because of this and change your outlook. And the only way to really want anything is to really want to get business, just so you understand that. So I'm trying to put a fire in your belly. I hope you appreciate it and understand. And because you need to want something to want to get it. No one's going to encourage you in your firm to do this because they need soldiers. The partners need soldiers. They don't need people that are first and second year attorneys bringing in business. They need people that they can give work to that are going to work hard and make them money. They don't care about your business, but the ecosystem does. Something bigger than you does. And the ecosystem needs it. So no one is going to tell you this. The only way to really do this is to really want to get business. If you want, again, I would recommend reading a book like Think and Grow Rich, because I talk about this a lot. There's the chapters about persistence, about visualizing what you want and things. You need to have some sort of system in place to really give yourself to work yourself into a frenzy to want to get business. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be in trouble. And to really want business, to really want to have business, you really want to be an attorney. Do you want to be an attorney? Because if that's the job of an attorney, a job of an attorney is to have clients. It's not to do work for other people the rest of your career. I believe the job of an attorney is to have clients and work for clients. Now, maybe your client is an in-house company, maybe it's the government, you work for the government, but if you want to do the best you can and you really want to be an attorney, I would think you need to make sure that you prioritize this. And this is what everyone does. Everyone that's got business starts out at firms, and they may have when they're young associates, and they just get out there and they start meeting people and they prioritize it and they schedule it and they really want it. And if you really want something, you're going to look for opportunities. You need to influence, by the way, your subconscious mind. You just need to take care of your mind. Basically, that means things like affirmations and thinking about it, writing down your goals and all this stuff. And the ones who want something are the ones that get it. That's all there is to it. You have to want it to get it. At one point, you probably wanted to get into a certain college. You wanted to go to law school. You wanted to get into a firm. This is what you need to want. You need to want to have business, and it's extremely important. I know I've done classes teaching attorneys how to get business, and pretty much the people that I can teach them, teaching you right now. But I teach how to network, how to be seen as a giver as opposed to a taker, and how to be found by potential clients and more. And that's the other thing. Like, if you're a taker, you're in trouble. You need to basically be seen as giving more than taking. And that's what people need to see you as a giver. Like, you have more value than you're taking. And you need to be found by potential clients, meaning someone with that legal problem needs to be able to find you. And so that's why you have to be an expert. And then you need to be seen. So you need to be out there networking, and people need to know what you do. But this is it. That's really all there is. I just taught you just now what you need to do. But the real reason people took these classes, got business, it's not because of Harrison Barnes. No, it's not. I have nothing to do with it. The reason they did is because they're the ones that wanted business. They paid me $2,800 or whatever I charged to take a class. And these people got business because they really wanted business. That's it. It's not that maybe they learned, of course they learned what I taught and I had a lot to teach, but the reason they got business is because they wanted it. They're willing to pay for a course and do the work and listen and consider and write things down. It's as simple as that. The ones that want business is the one that does it and do it. This is what you need to understand. You need to want this. And I don't know how much else to emphasize it, but it's going to make you happier. It's going to put you in the zone when you start getting business and really liking your job and being excited and having all this stuff and not feeling like a soldier. It's no fun being a soldier. When you're a soldier, you might be like sleeping in the rain for 3 days, like while the generals are in some tent somewhere drinking cognac. It's a different existence in strategizing about what they're going to do with their soldiers. It's more fun being a general, and it's just better. And that's what you need to do. And again, people that go to very successful, good schools and things become very successful many times. I went to University of Chicago, and I'm amazed like how successful some people in my class are. I never would have imagined when I was younger. But why are people so successful from these schools? It's not because it's not that the schools are teaching something very special. There's nothing special you learn, maybe at MIT or something, but there's nothing special you're going to learn at the University of Chicago or Duke or whatever when you go to a school like that. It's the people that get into those schools worked really hard and got into those schools. And they were already successful before they started. Harvard, people that go to Harvard, like the whole idea of Harvard or Stanford or these really super, or Yale or something, the reason people are successful to come out of there is just by getting in, they have to be set up to be extraordinary. And so it's just, these people are very successful before they even started. Some of the most successful people, Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, were so successful that they were on such a fast track that when they got into these schools, they dropped out because they were constrained. They were already like freaking on fire. The school didn't teach them anything. That's what they had. And so it's the same thing. If you really want the business, you're going to figure out how to get it. And you're going to be like the same thing. You're going to be already on fire and you'll get it. People that want something get it. I don't care what you want to do. You can do anything you want to do. And that's part of the biggest thing I want to tell you is anything that you want is yours. You just have to be focused and want it and write it down and concentrate on that goal. And then the universe will conspire to make it happen for you. That's just how it works. Most people don't do that. Most people don't have goals, but your goal needs to be to get business. And if that's your goal, you'll figure out how to get it done. That's all I can tell you. And it's going to give you control over your career. So the other thing you can do is if you're a senior associate and you decide you don't want to get business, you don't want to go in-house, is just find a healthy firm. And this is a lot of what I do for a living. This is something I'm an expert in. It's pretty much 90% plus of what I do. People are in firms that they don't like and they want to find another firm. I find this much more interesting than much more fun in a lot of ways, helping people get into these firms. Then I would love to teach people to get business, but unfortunately, that's not something I can scale. Maybe there is, probably is, but the point is that I'm very good at finding healthy firms for associates and partners without business. The reason is because there's so many law firms out there. If you're a senior associate somewhere and you're at a firm where there's no business and they don't want you, and you're an expert in some side of law, of course I can find you a place. You have to be open to looking at a lot of places, but of course I can. So there's always going to be a place that's interested in you, and it's quite possible. And it's not hard. None of this is hard. What's hard, by the way, what's very funny, and I'll just make this point, is if you have an expertise, I don't care what it is, but you're an expert in something, you just don't look like a generalist and your resume is consistent, you can get tons of jobs. It doesn't matter. I don't care where you went to law school, because there's so many firms out there. There's literally firms, there's tens of thousands of law firms. There's over 40,000 law firms. I work with 35,000. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Now, most recruiters, by the way, just so you understand like the difference between what I'm saying, most recruiters, the way the business has always worked, and it's not how BCG works, the way the business is, and again, I'm not trying to plug the company here, but we're a placement firm. The way the business works is most recruiters will work with a couple firms, or they'll work with big firms primarily, or they'll have a handful of smaller firms, but most recruiters work with the most prestigious firms for the most prestigious candidates. And if you're not one of those people and you apply, they're like, oh, sorry, I can't help you. Your grades weren't good enough. And that's just absolutely insane. If you run a company like I do with 200 plus employees and you have the kind of data we have and the research and the historical, you quickly realize that the opportunities out there for people are endless. But most people do not believe in that. So they think, oh, I should only apply to 5 or 6 firms, which recruiters will tell them because that's all the opportunities they have. But there's so many freaking opportunities. It's just unbelievable. Like one of the first placements I made is, I think it was with K&L Gates. It was a securities partner with no business. He hadn't worked in 5 years, and he got him a job in Seattle that needed someone to be a personal securities attorney for Bill Gates. Or I think, no, the securities attorney, I don't know, left, and it was something like that. But it's just, this is what happened. And because he was securities and he was a securities partner, he had started a business, I think, in Russia called Yankee Baby, making diapers or something, and moved back to Chicago, needed a job. And we did a nationwide search and found him this job. Not too long ago, I was placing people, and it's not as popular now, but North Dakota, because there was so much work and trust in estates and all these things. And in these markets, there's a lot of fracking going on. I've been working with a real estate partner in Detroit, and he had a good education. One time worked in a large law firm, needed a job, and wanted to go to Palm Beach. And I told him, no, the Detroit market is exploding. And he said, and I told him, because there's so much real estate work there, most firms there will take you seriously, even with no business. And this is what people say to me all the time. They think they understand things. And again, I do not understand things perfectly. I understand some things I don't but I did understand that market. And I told them there's so many openings there that they need people to do the work. And he wasn't hearing of it, and he found it hard to believe. And he said he saw people from those firms around town and be embarrassed if he applied to any of them. And he wouldn't put themselves out there like that. That's the other thing people think. They think, oh, well, it's embarrassing if I apply to more than a few firms or ones where I don't know people. No one cares. They look at your resume and then they forget. They don't even know you. There's nothing wrong with applying to a firm. The ego that attorneys have is freaking insane. I don't understand why people care about people knowing they applied to a firm. I mean, the law firms just look at the resume and either it works for them and they have the work or it doesn't. So this guy said I wouldn't want to put himself out there. And I was 100% right. And I was speaking to a big partner there a couple of weeks later, and they said, we don't care what kind of real estate attorney we hire because we have so much work. We just need someone with a lot of experience. And a few weeks later, the firm hired someone from another small Detroit firm at $290,000 a year, which is a lot of money in Detroit, and without any business. And at some points in time, firms have a lot of business, other points they don't. And to find a healthy firm is very important if you don't have any business. It may be that New York is slow. It may be that Los Angeles is slow in your practice area. Fine. But there's also going to be lots of firms in that market that you can apply to. If you're in Los Angeles, there's 5,000 plus good firms. The numbers are staggering. And it's ridiculous to say that not all these firms have work, because a lot of them do. And so you have to be, some firms have work, others don't. Work moves within different markets and cities and responds to economic things that when I say recruiters can see, I have a data scientist working for me full time. This is very complex to see, but at some points in time, like you'll have rural Wisconsin could be booming in family law. Like you could send anybody there from any part of the country, and there's things that happen that are economic forces you just don't know. And they're very complex. I've had a data scientist at our company working on a pretty simple matter, like for 3 weeks, and still doesn't have a solution. But there's a lot of things that happen. And patent prosecution is a lot of times active and is always traditionally, it's not as much anymore, but it always been patent prosecutors, electrical engineers, and computer scientists, always very active in the Bay Area. Then I see people getting laid off in markets like Chicago or other parts in the Midwest, and they're like, oh, there's no jobs in the city. I can't find anything. And they're only looking at a lot of times bigger firms. But if you start looking at other parts of the country, when you get laid off somewhere, you can always go to one part where there is a lot of work. And suddenly it was funny. This is when this was written. There was a bunch of life sciences openings in New York City. It was just something you never saw. And because people do not like to hire, patent is not a popular practice area in New York City, because of the rates and other issues. It's more corporate based. But again, at that point in time, there was some cancer drug under development and large firms were involved. I don't know what's going on. But again, there's openings where people in markets that are always good for different practice areas. Life sciences has traditionally been very good in San Diego and Orange County. And also Boston. So there's you just never know how markets work. So markets, here we go. Got a problem. Let's see what's going on here. I may need to get Jared's help to open this. I don't know why he'll probably be in here in a second, why the PowerPoint was lost. Here he comes. So give me 1 second. All right. I apologize for that. Let me just fix that. I don't know what happened, the memory or something. Let me see. What the heck's going on here? So let me just move to the slide we're on. 1 second. Wow. Sorry. Yeah, it's no fun having these technical snappers. We actually we had to have a special internet installed in our office here because sometimes the internet would fail during these presentations. Okay, so here we're moving through. My apologies too, by the way. So this is a very interesting webinar. I'm glad that you guys are listening to and girls are listening to this. It's literally some of the most important information you could have. And most people never understand this stuff. So it's really important. Okay, this is the Detroit. We talked about that. And then let's keep moving here. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so just talking about how work moves from firms in different cities, which is just important to understand. So if you feel like you're in a market where there's no work or you're senior, there's always work, by the way, for senior attorneys if you're able to look at other markets and different types of firms, which most people aren't. So the biggest thing, and I wanted to just warn you about this, and this is the biggest misconception of attorneys. So what happens at BCG is my philosophy, by the way, if you're one of my candidates, and I have this philosophy because I know it works, is I will send you usually jobs first that you're most likely to get because they're job orders and things. But we have these 5 different types of firms we send people. And some of them are just like, if you stick with us, we'll send you firms that, of course, don't even have openings, but it doesn't matter because they're good in your practice area. So if you're a senior corporate attorney and you're at a big firm and we're sending you 15 or 20 or maybe 100 mid-sized firms, all we're doing is we're saying, maybe one of these firms has work. Let's find a firm with work. It's pretty simple. It's not, oh, let's spam this person's resume. No, we need to find firms that have the work that they need because some of those firms are going to have work and others won't. It's that simple. No one understands this. They think it's like some sort of recruiter scam or something. You have to look at a lot of places in order to get a job. And when I say a lot of places, keep in mind, 5,000 plus law firms in Los Angeles. And then you have Orange County where you have thousands. I mean, there's so many freaking places out there where you can work. There's firms and it's ridiculous. And again, there's some markets like New York that typically are very difficult to work, where if you go to a top law school, let me just see here. Yeah, there's life sciences. If you go to a top law school, that's good. But it's less important than where you've worked now or in the past. And what happens a lot of times when there's a recession, I believe that there's definitely something going on in the market. I think it's very bad, to be honest with you. We're still making a lot of placements and things are going very well, but it's just the way I see people behaving is not good. And economically, in recession, work often moves to smaller markets where the legal work is cheaper. And so this is something to understand. So if you're in a big market and you think you're having a hard time finding a job, you're not getting interviews, and you think, oh, there's something wrong with me, I should be depressed and I should be so unhappy. No, you need to work in a market that's smaller and where they do have work, because big companies still have legal work. They just send it to their smaller firms that are cheaper during recessions. People are trying to save money. And so that's what you can do. It's important to understand these dynamics. Most people don't. Most people think it's all about ego. If I'm not getting a job, there's something wrong with me, or my career is over, I need to try something else. No, you need to look at more markets and other places and apply to more places. I don't know how many times to say this to people, but it can save your life and your career. The reason I'm so fired up about this is I've seen so many people really get messed up by this stuff, and meaning divorces and suicides, and not a lot of suicides, but just things that are just very tragic, substance abuse and things, because they're like, oh, I can't get a job in the largest firms in Los Angeles. No one's having me. I don't know what to do. No, you need to look at more markets and smaller markets. And it's just, wow. And so you need to understand these dynamics. Certain markets like Rochester, New York is a great market. Most of upstate New York is. People, for whatever reason, they think that there's something wrong with accepting a lower salary there, even though the cost of living is 3 times cheaper than New York City. Corporate law often gets very slow in recessions and there's few jobs, and litigation actually does get busier. There's just all these kind of dynamics that are going on. And then it's just about the way work moves during different economies. Litigation tends to get more active during recessions, then slow down after a while because there's just all these dynamics going on. I don't real estate gets busy when the interest rates are low, when it gets high. So there's just all these dynamics around the country that happen, and there's hundreds of these things. I could talk about them all day, and I don't want to bore you with it. But the idea is that certain markets, like New York, will always slow down first, then the Bay Area, a few weeks are simultaneously, and then often the Midwest and Texas later. And it's just things happen when things pick up and then slow down. Washington, D.C. is a great market. You can always I've never seen it slow down in my entire history of what I've been doing. It's always a good market. And again, work is moving around. Just think cyclically from different places, from city to city. You can always find a job, is what I'm saying, in a law firm. Anybody can. You just have to be aggressive and apply to a lot of places. And I don't need to talk too much about this dynamic anymore. I just want you to understand, just because you can't find work in your current market doesn't mean that there's no work available. You need to look at more markets. You need to do whatever you can and discover work. Now, it's just important to understand this. The firms are dynamic economic systems. They start and grow often many times because of what I'm talking about now is something, they typically will, when they start, there's typically someone or a group of people that are leading it. They have some sort of business proposition. Our costs are lower. We're doing things differently. We're staffing more leanly. I don't know. We're more aggressive. We can do things they couldn't do with this other firm. We don't want. And again, there's all sorts of firms like this starting. There's firms that break off from major firms all the time. And it's just, again, this dynamic is important for your success. It's what Quinn Emanuel was. It's what lots of very successful firms that are existing now. They break off from a big firm. They typically grow very aggressively. They make a lot of mistakes. And what some of the mistakes they make are they hire people without business that they make a lot of mistakes, which is a good thing for someone that's looking for a job. I just want you to understand. They hire people very aggressively many times. I knew one firm like that was growing so fast. It hired someone that was there for 6 years. It wasn't even an attorney, but they were holding out to the public as an attorney. And they finally noticed when the person was up for partner and they were getting malpractice insurance. Again, firms hire recklessly and quickly when they're starting. You can get into them if you couldn't normally get into like certain large firms. Many times, if you look at on paper, a lot of times they're started and they're poorly managed but bring in a lot of work because of whatever their business proposition is. And they often hire senior people without business because they're overconfident that they continue having to work. So what I'm saying is if you're a senior attorney without business, you can find these types of firms. That's my job, is to find them. And when you find them, you can often get a lot of work. They're great firms to get jobs in, and the best recruiters know how to find them. It's very funny. I'll just tell you a quick story. When I was a young recruiter, I was looking at this article about this firm I'd never heard of, and it wasn't listed anywhere or anything. It was in the Los Angeles Daily Journal, and it was about a firm in San Francisco. And there was a partner there saying something. It was a small firm saying something like, in 30 years of practice, I've never seen so much work, and this is an avalanche that we can't handle, or something like that. So I immediately sent all these people there. I sent a partner that had been not worked in 10 years because someone had found out he'd been married to 2 women and had a cocaine problem. I don't know, maybe 5 years he hadn't worked. I sent a woman just all these people that couldn't get jobs, and the law firm hired all of them. And it was great. And these are people, so you need to find things like that. And these types of firms that are growing and starting and that don't have professional management, because they will make mistakes, and it's an opportunity for you to come in and get hired at a place where you normally wouldn't. And a lot of times these firms merge. So these people that got hired at the firm I brought up earlier, it became part of a huge firm. I don't know what firm it was, but I don't even remember, but Holland and Knight or something of it. You get the idea. So the point is, as a firm gets more mature, it's harder to get into them. Your big firms and your very prestigious firms like Morrison and Forrester and stuff are going to look at you very carefully before bringing you in. Whereas a lot of times these smaller firms that are very busy will look outside the box and bring people in. I was working recently with an attorney from the Department of Justice that had spent 10 years at a major firm and was about 10 years out of law school. And he worked directly with one of the most influential attorneys in the Justice Department, someone, very well known. And he graduated at the top of his class from Stanford Law School and had a kind of an incredible record. And I sent him to a major firm in Washington, D.C. that did the exact same sort of work this did. And the attorney did. And I received a call from an administrator They basically said, this is a big firm, like a famous, well-known firm that hires a lot of people. And they said, I've been told to reject all attorneys with more than 6 years of experience with no business. This is someone, and this is blanket policy, no exceptions. I contacted a partner I knew at the firm, and the partner said, I agree, it's stupid not to talk to this person, but that's our policy. You just have to be, big firms have these types of policies, and smaller firms don't have policies yet. And they just think about a small company starting without rules and things, and all the mistakes they make as they become a big company. So many times you're going to succeed when you find smaller firms and places that other people don't know about. And an attorney that needs to find a firm that is growing is not settled in if they hope to get in a new firm without business. So that means you find some of these upstart firms when people are breaking off, where they love to use your background, say, oh, we've got an attorney that came from Morrison and Foerster and went to law school, whatever. And then they hold that out to their clients like they have all these great people, because it makes them look better and they can use the senior attorney. So I'm just telling you, I don't know how else to say this, but anybody can find another law firm job, even if you're senior. Most people do not trust the recruiting system to do it for them. I have other services like BCG reverse recruiting, where you can hire us to apply to those as you, if you don't want to use a recruiter. I don't care how you do it, or you can do it yourself and find these firms, but you need to find a healthy law firm if you're senior without business. And I personally believe it's fairly easy to do, because this is what I do for a living. And I've been doing it for 25 years. There's so many frickin' opportunities out there, and so many firms. There's upstart firms. There's, firms in other markets that are established, new people. I've seen things like firms in Idaho just hiring 20-year attorneys without business, because you have to look at a lot of places. The most famous story I can tell you, and again, I don't want to keep talking about it, but the most common story that I see is I have a lot of patent attorneys. And so patent attorneys may say, I deal with refraction lenses, that how they react to laser. They'll have some sort of expertise that you and I wouldn't really know what it is, but I'll just search our database to see if any firms have ever had jobs for attorneys that have worked with refraction lasers and lenses or something. And if I find one, sometimes I'll have a partner might be in. I had one I remember that was in Colorado, and this experience, and had been looking for a job for 3 years and not a single interview, and found a firm that did that in Texas. And guy had never even been to Texas, but suddenly 70 years old, or 68 years old, moving to San Antonio to a firm. Crazy. There's always opportunities for people. So I just want you to make sure you understand that if you're frustrated by the fact that you don't have a position, you're senior, you just need to apply to a lot of places and look at a lot of markets, and don't worry about your brand or whatever applying to a lot of places. The point of applying to a lot of places is finding people with work, and then preferably you're finding new firms that are starting that are going to make anyway. The other thing you can do is find an advocate inside your firm with a lot of business. This is the dumbest thing any attorney can do inside of a firm. And I hope this piece of advice alone can save your career. So the dumbest thing you can do as an attorney is to work for partners with a lot of business. Now, you can certainly work for people to get your hours up, but if you're working for someone with a lot of business, you should do whatever they ask you to do. If they ask you to shine their shoes and take their shoes to get shined, you should say, yes, sir, and do whatever you frickin' can to impress them. If they ask you to walk their dog, you should do it and not complain, and do the best job you can walking their dog. I don't care. You have to get rid of your ego. I had one of my first jobs was working for a federal judge. And I realized that his mail came in, that he couldn't get mail at home, but came into the post office, and they would, because our office was in a post office building, the chambers, but would come in at 7 a.m. because they would get it and they would put it upstairs in the clerk's office. And I don't know how I figured this out. And then he would have to walk up there and pick it up at 9 o'clock or whenever he came in. I got into work every day at 7. So I would go grab his frickin' mail and put it on his desk first thing in the morning, because I wanted to save him that trip. I wasn't asked to do that. I did it automatically because I wanted to kiss his ass. He's a person I've been working for. There's nothing wrong with this. He had my future in his hand. He could have called firms and gotten me jobs. That's what I did. People that with a lot of business and power can make your career if you do good work for them. You need to find people in your firm with business, and you need to kiss their ass. I'm sorry, but that you are not an employee until you are an employee, you are a soldier, and you need to get favor of people that have business. They can save your career. If you have an advocate, someone with a lot of business, they can make you partner. They can keep you as a partner and keep giving you work. I know stories of people in firms where there was a class of 15 people or something that could have been up for partner. And an attorney goes to trial with the biggest rainmaker in the firm and decides that he's going to do nothing but do the best freaking job he can during this trial, which is like a week or two or a couple of weeks in some city, including picking this guy's breakfast and coffee up and whatever, and basically working all night, having everything ready for him in the morning, making sure that everything is. And then sure enough, when it comes to make partner, he's the only one that makes partner. And it's because of this person that he'd never worked for before, but did an incredible job and kissed his ass during the trial, wanted him as partner. So I have seen more attorneys than I can count make partner due to a relationship with another partner out of business. And this is something that you need to do. You need to work with partners with business. Now, that's not to say you should be mean to partners without business, because you can actually work for them, and you're better off making your mistakes with them than you are with the partners with business. But when you start working with these partners with business, you need to be the right-hand person. In every big law firm in the country, there are partners there that do nothing but work for more powerful partners with business. There are lots of them. This is a way to employment security. You can have a career, even though there's a lot of instability working for people without business, you can have a career working for a partner with a lot of business. Again, I've seen more attorneys than I can count not make partner and lose their jobs due to the absence of these relationships. They only realize it later. Like one guy I was talking to was at a big firm, and he billed one of these things, 25 to 2,800 hours. It was a very good work, but said, yeah, I got to the point where I could have made partner, and I realized that I hadn't built enough, didn't have anybody out there with business that could sponsor me, and all the people that could have sponsored. This is huge stuff, ladies and men. Like, this is like extremely important. Like, you need to get business, and you need to work with people that have work, because they can make or break your career. If a partner with a lot of business supports you, that's huge. That means you're going to be in a position where you're able to get a job and where you're able to stay employed. They're not going to want to lose you. If you're the right hand, if you're working for someone with $7 or $8 million in business, or 10 or 20, and that person needs you, and you understand them and have good relationship with their clients, they're not going to let the firm mess with you. They're not going to say, let this person go because they don't have any business. You've got a protector, and you're in great shape. If you don't mind not having business, that's great. And so the law firms are, again, I told you at the beginning of this presentation that the most important thing is the attorneys with business inside of a law firm. It's what makes the whole system tick. So if you're close with someone like that, law firms never want to piss off a partner with a lot of business if they can help it. They need their work and the money the partners generate. And these are the people you need to work for. You need to be loyal and impressed. You need to be like all over them. Like the best freaking employee, you need to get there before work, before they get there. You need to be there after. You need to anticipate their needs. You need to do everything you possibly can to make them look good. You need to talk positively about them publicly. You need to never say anything bad about them. You need to support them when they make mistakes. You need to look out for them if people are out to hurting them. This is the game, man. This is what it's all about. So I don't know what else to say, but I'm not saying you need to be a sycophant and actually walk a dog, but you need to show as much respect for these people as you can. You need to make them feel good about themselves. Who in your life, by the way, is looking out for you? Again, a lot of times people look at their lives and who's looking out for you. And if anybody's really looking out for you, it's probably a parent or a spouse or a relative or something that always has your back. Those people will be with you for the rest of your life. And this is what people gravitate towards naturally. People want to be around people that are actually really looking out for them. And if you do that for someone, you're going to have their loyalty. So many people decide, oh, I'm going to be on the side of negativity. I'm going to be on the side of asking for raises. I'm going to be on the side of being unhappy about my bonus. I'm going to be on the side of talking about people. I'm going to be on the side of going on these blog sites and saying negative things. No, that's not going to get you anywhere. You need to be the best possible person you can for someone that has business. You need to never say anything negative about them. You need to show them respect and work even harder than they do and have their back. Who's got your back? And if someone really does, that person means everything to you. And that's what partners are like too. You need to be seen as indispensable to these types of people. And if you are, they're going to feel that you're 100% needed and that they can't imagine life without you. I've seen partners, by the way, where I've said something about the firm that might have come across as a little negative to them or something, to have these huge books of business, 10, $15 million. These partners, when they have people close to them that are got their back, they were very defensive, of them. They will they will jump down your throat and they will destroy people. Not destroy, but if anybody's messing with it, you need advocates on your side. And if you have really good advocates and that person really is a real superstar of the partner, you're always going to be safe. They'll take you from firm to firm and they'll mostly make sure you survive no matter what. I can think of countless, meaning I could sit here for days and tell you about people that got to where they got to because of that. I know people that are, when I say millionaires, I mean 10, 20, $30 million in the bank and retire and even in their 40s. Because these working with these people and never had any business. This is incredibly important. It's not about your ego. This is about survival. Your career is about survival. So you don't survive when you're on the side of negativity. You don't survive when you're not working for people that don't have any business. You're not surviving when you're only I'm interested in doing this type of work. Okay, fine. You want to do entertainment law in a big firm and I don't know, but if the work you're doing is important, what is important, everyone, so you understand, is having business. If you don't have any business, working in a firm with work or working for someone with work. And it doesn't matter the practice area. If you're close with someone, that's protection. That gives you protection to support your family, to retire if you want to when you're in the future, to do all these things. But you need to work with people with a lot of business. And they'll also show you how to get business maybe. But you need a mentor and you need to get advice. I'm your mentor, but I'm not doing the work to do the work. You need to watch other people and absorb this through osmosis. And you're going to pick up more than you realize, from their mannerisms to how they talk to clients and this is all going to help you when you start looking at clients, because you'll understand the dynamics and how it's done at a high level, and you'll model that so these are the people you need to be around. You need to spend your time with winners and not losers. And frankly, in every law firm, there are partners that are winners and there are partners that are losers. There are partners that are unhappy, that are talking negatively about the firm, that think the system is bad, that feel beat up. And there's partners that are on top of things. These are the people you need to be spending your time with and learning from. It doesn't mean you have to have a negative attitude towards the partners that are losers. But when I say losers, not happy, not doing well, negative, and I know people in their mid 60s that have been working for the same partners that are in their 80s for their entire careers. They're rich, they've made huge incomes. And when you work for people with a lot of business, they're going to take pride in taking care of you and helping you. And that's just how it works. Those people will help you. And this is how you need to spend your time. And again, I apologize for talking with so much passion about this, but you need to really be very careful about who you work for. None of this is about your ego. None of this is about saying, oh, I like this person, they're my friend. If they don't have any business, you need to be careful. None of this is about saying, oh, I want to do this type of work. No, you need to protect yourself and you need to look out for your career and your future. And this is the only way to do it. Another thing is, if you're unhappy at your current firm, you don't have any work and you're senior, typically whatever market you're in is eventually going to improve. Everything moves in cycles. That's just how it works. When the economic environment gets active, there's always work. It's amazing to me that I've seen people that are out of work for years. It's like a bankruptcy attorney, and then all of a sudden they're hired by a huge firm in New York and work. The markets get white hot, and people that are not normally marketable become marketable. It happens all the time. If you're in a well-defined practice area and you're senior, the market will always get active at some point. Different markets like tax, trust and estates and so forth are often very slow in large firms. Then they can kind of heat up sometimes. It just depends. So I'm just saying, a lot of times, the point of this is a pretty quick number 5 here. It's just certain practice areas will always pick up. And so if you're in a market that's slow and you're worried you're senior, you don't have enough work, many times you just have to wait it out and time is on your side. This is another big one, is to downgrade the quality of the firm you work for or start your own practice. So if you're senior, there's lots, especially if you're at a good firm, you can, just by working at a smaller firm that's happy to use your brand and so forth, get work. There's all sorts of firms that need help at various points in time. There's all sorts of places you can work at. There's lots of jobs. Even anybody can get a job. So some of these firms, like some people start off in practice areas where they're unhappy, but if you really need a job and you want a job, there's plenty of people that will hire you and need help at various points in time. One of the things I'll say too, that's very interesting to me, and this is a point that I think merits a little bit of discussion, is when people go out in interviews and they don't get the jobs that they want, a lot of times it's because they don't know what they want and they're low energy and there's all sorts of problems. Another time what happens is they sell, and then you can certainly get other jobs, better jobs too, if you keep going, but you need to learn how to get a job. And there's so many jobs out there. It's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. There's so many in any economy. They may not be always what you want, but there's so many jobs. And you need to be careful. And if the market switches, you often do need to, if you need to take jobs, you may not be what you want. I see a lot of times, I see people coming out of law school and feeling badly about not getting a job in a big firm or only wanted to work in big firms, or coming out of a law school and having a background where they could never work in a big firm, at least without business or several years of experience in a good practice area. And thinking they need to work in a big firm. And your job really is to get into the best firm you can. And you may be cast out of a big firm because you don't have any money, which is basically portable business, or you don't have anybody defending you, which are partners with business, or you don't look good enough on pay. I don't know, and you need to work with people that will have you. Why try to work with people that don't want you? You need to work with people that need you and that have the work. So your ego, by the way, is often the thing that hurts people the most. Like you can't define yourself based on working at a certain type of firm or doing a certain type of forever. You have to define yourself based on having access to work. That's really how you should be defining yourself, and access to the best work you can that people will give you. So let me explain something to you. So people define themselves and they'll say, I work at this firm and I went to this law school. No. You are doing this type of work and you're getting this type of work. You need to define yourself. Your whole goal is to have access to work. The more work you have, the better work, the better clients. That's the point. And so you could go to a smaller firm and be working for huge clients. I don't know, but you can always move up in firms. I've seen people start out at huge firms, move to smaller firms, move back to bigger firms. All this is possible. And if you do well, it's perfectly fine. You can start at a small firm, move to a bigger firm. And this is all easy. It's very easy, especially if you have a specialty. If you have a specialty, say you want to be a corporate attorney, like you start out at a 3-person firm in some suburb outside of a mid-sized in Memphis, outside in the suburbs of Memphis. When you do that, then you move to a bigger firm, maybe in Chattanooga or something. And then from there, you could I've seen people do things like then move to a big firm in Chicago. And then from the big firm in Chicago, they moved to New York. This is all possible. I've seen people move from 3 or 4-person firms to AmLaw 100 law. It's all possible, but you need to start somewhere and you can't define your ego. The most important thing you can do as an attorney, by the way, even if you're senior, is to stay employed and take your ego out of this whole thing and never give up. You can take contract work too. A lot of times people spend their career doing that. You can make a good living at it. I think it makes it more difficult to get a job in another law firm as an associate if you do that. But you should stay working. You should stay working. You don't need to be a contract attorney, by the way. You can always get a job as an associate in a law firm. You just have to look harder and push yourself. And I don't understand, after everything I've said, and I say this in every webinar, I don't understand why people don't work harder to job search. It's one of the most important things you can do. A lot of attorneys also start their own firms. It's very common, but also risky. I know people that have started their own firms after time in larger firms, and a lot of them don't do that well. And I just put it that way. It's because they often were let go because they didn't have any business and they started their own firm. And then they have all these ideas about what's proper. And so how would you expect to start getting business if you leave a firm without business? and without the resources, name, and support of a larger firm. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm sorry, but you could. A lot of times, associates I've seen break off with a partner and they start a firm together, and you can start a firm. But if you do start a firm, again, this is not, from my standpoint, this is not brain surgery or that complex, but you have to understand why clients are going to use you. If you do start your own firm, they would come to you because if the clients in your firm would come to you, they would only come over to you if they like you, they trust you, and they're dissatisfied with the firm, and you're going to be cheaper. And if you don't have that, you need to have some sort of niche for your practice. I've seen people leave big firms like O'Melveny and things and start personal injury firms and become fabulously rich. And they had a good idea about different types of firms, different types of practice areas and things. So if you understand the stuff, you can do well. And it can be done. It's quite common, but you need to study this and have a good idea, and don't just hang out a shingle. It's very risky. And especially if you're already negative and part of this kind of negative crowd inside of law firms, you're going to be just as negative about your own prospects and think that there's something wrong when you start your own firm. Everybody, by the way, the biggest thing that people do when they don't succeed is they make excuses. And everybody has excuses for not succeeding. And what you need to understand is everything that happens, you need to take responsibility for. If you start your own firm and you're negative, you just need to realize you're going to have a really hard time getting people to pay. It's very difficult to get clients to come to you. There's just lots of issues that you need to be aware of. No one cares when you start your own law firm. If you're a great brief writer or you went to Cornell Law School, they care about what the cost is for you to do their will, or what the cost is to do their bankruptcy, whether or not they think you can get them money for their auto accidents. But I would say that it's better to try to start your own firm than quit practice altogether. Okay, the seventh, and I have an eighth one that'll be very quickly that I'll talk about when we start the questions and answers. And then we're almost done with this webinar, and then we'll do Q&A. The seventh one is you can stop practicing law completely, which is what a lot of people do. A lot of people are so miserable being soldiers that they think they need to quit the practice of law. Of course they are. It's not fun being a soldier, but for a lot of people it can be the right decision. Some attorneys are not meant to be practicing law. And I want to be very clear with you that a lot of people aren't. And a lot of people are. And I'll talk a little bit about the differences, but many attorneys are meant to be practicing law and should never entertain the thought of quitting. You may just be doing something wrong. It's like in baseball. If you baseball and you hold the bat up here instead of down where you're supposed to, and you keep missing because you're holding the bat in the wrong place, maybe there's something you can fix. Business is one of them, or finding the right person to work with. But you need to understand these dynamics that I've talked about, these 5 or 6 dynamics so far, because if you think about quitting and you are someone that should be practicing law, you're making a horrible decision. If you did really well on the LSATs, you probably have a lot of aptitude for practicing law. I know that they're getting rid of the LSATs, but that's a test that shows how your mind works. And people that do really well should probably be practicing law. People that are very good at different types of practice areas, even if you didn't do well, should probably be practicing law. There's no shortage of people that are very talented that stop practicing law that have had incredible careers in politics, public relations, business, and other pursuits. So most attorneys that stop practicing law, especially if you're motivated, you can do very well. I talked about alternative careers last week. There's a lot of traditional and non-traditional jobs you can do if you start practicing law. But often I think what happens is being an attorney is demanding. A lot of times people do have much better careers than they would if they remained practicing law. One thing I would say to you is if you're not getting any satisfaction, there's nothing you like about the actual work of being an attorney, or if you've been doing it for several years and a lot of people around you are much better than you and you feel like you're never going to be that good, then maybe you're doing the wrong thing. You probably have a different skill set in something else that you're going to be much better at. And that's exactly what you should be doing. And you should consider, how much a lawyer makes. When you're in other professions, you can often become famous or make much more money than you would practicing law. So that's something to think about. And so you need to really understand that that can, for a lot of people, might be the right decision. Business is the most important thing. So just quitting something because you're not doing an important component of the job doesn't make sense. I believe it's just something you need to learn, and you shouldn't quit just because you're not doing that. And a lot of times what people do is they quit because they never learn how to get business, and they never they're never inspired. And you're just listening to what I'm saying today, by the way, these are very helpful. It could be the best time you've ever spent. Sometimes you listen to the stuff and you may not do anything right now, but a year or two from now, everything I said will click and you remember it and change. I really respect people that are doing this. I do not recommend quitting the practice of law if you really feel like it's something you want to do and you're just not doing that one component. So again, these are the conclusions. We'll take a quick break, but building business is really fundamental for your long-term survival. If you don't have any business, you can certainly choose from these options, but the most important thing is having access to work and really creating work. So I talk about that a lot. I had an experience once where it was interesting. Like I used to have this company. It's based on the BCG reverse recruiting company. It was called Legal Authority, and I would hire all these attorneys to work there and to talk to other attorneys. But I would hire attorneys that weren't practicing, and I used to be very concerned. I would hire people from these top law schools to work there. Tons of people around LA that went to every top law school there is, and to work there and had bad experiences and worked at 3 or 4 law firms that were no longer practicing. The one thing I noticed about all of them is that they, like some people like are, and this is interesting about, this is the most important component, I think, of being a good attorney and being fit for this. I hope this point makes with you. Some people will sit there and only do the work that's given to them and then won't find other types of work and things to be done. Other people will go and find all sorts of things and work that needs to be done. So these people would get 5 appointments per day, maybe talking to attorneys seeking jobs, and then that would be it. They'd be done. They'd be like, okay, time to go home. Whereas other people that hadn't quit the practice of law or that maybe were more suited would do the 5 appointments, and then they would call 20 people in the database trying to get another appointment. Then they would work more. They would go back and look at the appointments they'd had previously and call them, and they would always be creating work. Whereas the people that had failed at the practice of law wouldn't know how to create work. They wouldn't find things and work to be done. And it doesn't matter what law school you went to. And if you don't know how to create work, that's a problem. So creating work is the whole name of the game. Like you just need to create work, and you need to, this is what the best attorneys do. This is what the best associates do. They find new things to be done and new hours to bill and and this is what the best partners are doing for their clients. They always have, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this in the future. They always have work to be done. And so you need to be able to create work, and this is the game. So this is why people fail. They don't know how to create work. And if you're a senior associate, I can't, when you get senior, I can't really, any more than I've told you today, show you how to get business. But you need to find firms that are on the way up and have a lot of work. And you need to be able to use me and as a recruiter, or use reverse recruiting, that service we have at BCG, or you need to be able to use something else, meaning you need to be able to apply to these places and find them on your own. And if you look at enough markets, you're always going to be able to get something. And when you get older, it becomes much harder, but there's still work out there. And that's kind of it. But I guess the final point I would make is I do feel very passionate about this stuff with your attitude and your ability to have the right attitude about this and to be on the side of positivity and not on the side of negativity and the side of being a winner. And there's so much value in that. And there's so few people that have that. And they burn bridges and they're all out for themselves. And it's all about ego and it's their prestige. And it's just not good. But anybody can get a job. And the overriding message here, I guess, is you need to know how to create work, but you really need to learn how to get business. And again, there's a lot of ways to do it, but the most important thing is really wanting that business and being able to go after it. I apologize that this webinar was a little bit longer than normal, but we'll come back and do questions. And after, just take a quick break for a minute or two, and then we'll do questions. But extremely important topic. I would recommend, if you did sit through this today, going back and even watching this again, because this stuff can save your life and your career. And so many people, like, gosh, because they don't understand what I covered today, they really have messed up careers and messes up their life. And they make a lot of bad decisions and that they don't even know they're making at the time. So I feel very blessed to be able to tell you about this and what you need to do. But I hope this advice is helpful. And I can't underestimate, over stress how important this stuff is. All right. One of the things I said at the beginning is I think that there's really, I talked about 7 things you need to do, but I also wanted to talk about a couple other things that you can do too. I recently launched this website. It's pretty crazy right now. It needs a lot of work, haven't really officially launched it, but it's called superrecruiter.com. And it's not really important to talk too much about it because it just was launched. But the idea of the site, there's 2 ideas. The logo is a giraffe. And what happens to, I think I told you guys and girls and another webinar, is that the giraffe, when a giraffe is born, it falls out of its mother onto the ground, and the mother comes up and falls like 4.5 feet or whatever it is. And then the mother comes up and kicks it and knocks it down and keeps kicking it and knocking the giraffe down. And eventually she stops doing that. But the idea is that it's getting knocked down because it needs to be able to, she's trying to make it strong and resilient against, so it can, when it runs away from hyenas and everything, it can do that and then survive. And the giraffe ends up becoming the tallest and most majestic animal in the animal kingdom. And it's very fast and beautiful and sleek and a very interesting animal. But the point is that all great things get knocked down and bad things happen to them. And so that's kind of the logo of it. And then, but the interesting thing about the website is that it's really based on 3 things, which is biology, psychology, and social. And this is related to the webinar that and I'm not just going to spend too much time on it. But the idea is that in order for you to be successful, you need to have good biology, meaning you need to be healthy, and you need to control how your mind is working and how your body's working, meaning with exercise and being healthy. And you also need to control your psychology, which means you have to control what you're doing to how your mind's focused. And then you need to have these social components. So I think a lot of this is lost on people. And for me, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I could be anywhere from 40 to 60. It doesn't matter. But I feel much better now than I did, and healthier than when I was 30 and on the beer team, and I'm taking bad care of myself. And so all these things are important for you to be successful. I think that running your body and your mind and your psychology and everything is incredibly important. Social means you need other people to succeed. Psychology means you need the right frame of mind, and biology needs to do that. So that's what this site's going to be about. There's going to be different articles and podcasts and things that go along with that. So let me start with the questions, but I just wanted to put that out there. You guys, if you use BCG or any of our sites or Law Crossing, or JD Journal and things, you'll see some more information about that. So hope your dog is okay. Thank you. My dog actually, he died. So he was run over. It's actually the second dog that I've had that's been killed in the past few decades. I had another one, the bloodhound, that was killed, and this one is a French bulldog. So it's very sad. It's just, but that's part of the problem with living on close to a highway. Okay, so this person says, what can I do at a law firm? But thank you for the concern. What can I do at a law firm that will move me forward for business acquired and actually saving a major account for departure that routinely had service fees contributions? I'm an associate. It's not like I can walk out the door with a client. Okay, yeah. So what this person's saying is that a lot of times in law firms, what happens is other people get origination credit for clients, and that origination credit essentially means that one person is considered the person that brought in the client. So even if you're working on the client, you don't have the origination. And I'm just trying to understand this. Sorry, I'm so tired because I was up all night with this dog. Okay, I think if you save the client from departing, that would help you. But I guess the point is that if you do save a client from leaving, that's not necessarily you're not going to be accredited with that, but that can help you, I guess, with the client potentially. And then if maybe later you left the firm and wanted to take the client with you, you could certainly do that. But I don't know really how to answer that question other than if you ask it again, I can try to add before for business acquired and saving a major. I see. So you're just not getting origination credit for the client. So the idea would be to try to get other clients with that, if that makes sense, and try to bring in other clients as well. Let me see. Okay. Can a 40-year-old junior lawyer reach 100,000 in salary? And if so, is it possible to progress further to 150? How does the timeline for this different state such as Yes, of course. So it doesn't matter. Lots of attorneys start their careers at the age of 40. It's not actually uncommon. I don't think you have to worry about that. The compensation is different in different states. So yeah, California is higher, Florida, New York is high. But yes, you can, to reach this different type of salary just means you have to be in a firm where there's demand for you. So you want to try to get in the best possible firm you can. So that's what I would recommend. And it's also important if you to make the salary to get in a practice area you can. What I don't like about this question, and I'll just be, because a lot of young people, and when you're young, you're is 40 and you're an associate, ask this question about salaries. It doesn't matter what your practice area is. You could be doing collections. You could be doing, it doesn't matter what your practice area is. The people that are really good in any practice area make a lot of money. The people that are good in any practice area can start their own firms. The people that are good in any practice area get clients. So it doesn't matter if you start out and you're not getting hired by the biggest firms and the ones paying the most, and you're just trying to make salary. Making the salary is not what it's about. As a young attorney, your job is to get the work and to get the training and to develop a specialty. And then, so it's develop a specialty, get the work, and then get trained, and then get paid in the progress, the training. So this is not, I just want to make sure everyone understands, and this is one of the most important points I can make to young attorneys and about your career and your psychology and how you're thinking about this. Your job as a young attorney, and again, I want to make sure, I don't know how much I can emphasize this. All you care about is getting trained. You don't care, you shouldn't be concerned about your salary. I understand you have student loans and whatever, but you should be concerned about getting trained. That's what it's all about. You're just getting trained experience and you're watching other people. It's not, you're not there to make money. So it's like in the medical profession, what happens is people become residents and they basically are in servitude. It doesn't matter if they went to Stanford Medical School or whatever, they're still going to do the same low paid work as residents, and they're getting trained. And then once they get trained, then they can make the big money. But you need to spend about 5 years getting trained. And those first 5 years of your career, you get trained in the best possible place you can. The bigger the firm, the more you're going to get, more money you're going to get. But that's just a bonus. Like the pay you get is a bonus, because once you learn a skill, which may take you 5 years, it usually takes about 5 years to become proficient in something. You get your experience in the best possible place you can. But once you get the training and you have the experience, you're all set. Then you can start your own firm. You can move to another firm, but you need to have some sort of specialty. If you go to a firm, but the only way you're going to increase your income too, by the way, is whether you have a specialty. So if you go to a firm and you're doing 5 different things for some solo practitioner, that's very dangerous. You're never going to increase your salary. If you're doing one thing, that's all you need to concentrate on. This is the most important point I think I can give everyone on the call. I have been doing this for, again, a long time. And I don't want to keep emphasizing that, but I've been doing what I do for a long time. In that period of time, I have realized, unlike most of the industry, but I mean, that the only thing that matters is having a specialty and being good at one thing. So I don't care what it is. It could be representing alcohol distillers, launch a new product and do the paperwork related to it. There's literally, if you have experience, it could be being an insurance defense attorney representing auto accident victims or companies representing, it doesn't matter. You just need a specialty. You just need to be doing one thing, because that's all the market needs. They don't need people that do several different things. So if you want to make money, you go and you find a specialty that pays the most. Think about what doctors do. Doctors say, oh, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon because they make a lot of money, or I want to be a plastic surgeon because they make a lot of money. This is what attorneys do too, and you should be thinking that way. If you want to make money and that's your goal, then you should select personal injury, or you should select something where you think you're going to do well. If you're really smart, you can be a corporate attorney, a commercial litigator, whatever. But you select a specialty where you feel like you're going to do the best with the least amount of competition that makes sense to you. But everyone needs to have a specialty. Like you can't, like this whole idea of being generalist is insane, because the market just has no interest in it. It's, and that's what I've learned. Think about it. I can only survive in my business. Like I want to help everyone get a job. So that's why I work with every different type of person. It's because I legitimately respect attorneys trying to get work. And I think it's like wonderful. And I'm not just, most recruiters it's about money and things, which is fine. It should be, but it's about big firms, big backgrounds. And I certainly do that, a lot of that, but it's my specialty as well. But the point is that if you have a specialty, like the market's going to open up to you. And it doesn't matter where you went to law school. None of this stuff matters. You need a specialty. You need to do something. And you get in the specialty that's most likely to have you. I talked about this last meeting, but you have different types of specialties. You have consumer-facing specialties, and you have corporate-facing specialty, or basically company-facing specialties. Ones that pay the most are when you're working on behalf of companies. So companies have more money to spend. So these are things like corporate, patent, what else? Commercial litigation. And this is where the most competition is. You have to be the smartest to succeed, because you're up against very smart people doing that. Everybody wants to work with the companies. This is where the people that go to the biggest law schools, this is what the biggest firms do. The biggest firms do not work for consumers. Consumer-facing specialties are things like trust and estates, their family law, personal injury, all this stuff. So you go into these things and anybody can do them. Your social skills, a lot of times, trust and estates can be very complex. So I don't want to get too far into that, and I don't want to misspoke there, but you have consumer and you have company facing. So depending on your aptitude for the practice of law, like consumer facing specialties, a lot of times you do not need to have high LSAT scores or great schools to be extremely successful. It's about other things. It's about your drive. It's about your ambition. It's about your enthusiasm. And these things, you're up against very smart people. So if you're not freaking really smart and you go up against a corporate attorney that's much smarter than you, they can put in all sorts of clauses and things and arguments you might not catch. Same thing in commercial litigation, all these other real estate. So you have to decide where you're going to be, and you're going to make more money working in a firm if you do company facing type things, but that's just how it is. But you're also going to be more likely to be able to start a firm if you do something like this. Family law attorneys, some of them make millions of dollars a year. You wouldn't believe how successful they can be. Same thing with personal injury. So none of this, it doesn't matter like the law school you went to. It doesn't matter how your aptitude and your LSAT scores. And what matters is your choice of the practice area. And company facing would also be insurance defense, and that because you're working for companies. But some insurance defense doesn't require the same rigor as commercial litigation. Why? Because the arguments are about liability and things, and they're just different. And they're not as, I'm not criticizing insurance defense, but you have different levels of company facing specialties too. So you just need to find a practice area that works for you to make the kind of income that you want to make. And that goes for everyone on this call. You need to make sure you understand that. Okay, give me 1 second here. It's just a lot of good questions. And I hope that answers your question. Your relationship with partners who have a lot of business determine whether an attorney makes partner or not. Yes, of course they do. Yes. So in order to be a partner in most firms, you need a sponsor. So sponsor is someone that says, I vouch for this person, they're freaking awesome, all that sort of thing. And so you need a sponsor. And the sponsor needs to come out and basically say why this person's great. So you can have powerful sponsors, which are people with business. And then you can have non-powerful sponsors, people without business, which are other partners. Law firms will do whatever they can to hold on and make powerful partners happy. So if you're a powerful partner that's sponsoring you, that's great. You're much more likely to make partner. As a matter of fact, the partner is powerful enough, there's no way you're not going to make partner. These powerful partners with business, they do things like they give business to other partners or non-powerful. They give business to partners without business. So those partners without business, of course, will say, yes, I vote for this, whatever you want, man. Same thing with the firm. The firm's, yeah, sure, we'll vouch for this person. So that's the game. Just understanding that alone could save your career. So if you're close to partners with business and they're supporting you, then and they have a lot of business and they want to make you partner, you're going to have a much better chance of making partner, because if they vouch for you, they can make everything happen for you. So why is that partner? Because they give business to other partners, they have power, and therefore, and so other partners need them, and the law firm doesn't want to lose them, to lose or make unhappy, because they make bringing in so much money. So why wouldn't, yes, these people can definitely, these partners without business, if they say they want to do something and they support you, they're going to have a very hard time getting everyone on board, because it's just going to be like, you don't have the power. And so it's just, this is how power works. It's about money. And again, I know people don't probably like to hear that, but that's just how it works. Yes, you want a powerful partner. So partner with business can determine definitely whether a partner, someone makes partner. Okay. Let me just see. So I'm just answering. There's a bunch of questions here, so I'm going to answer. And again, anybody that has questions, this is a great time to answer them. There's a bunch of small questions, but anybody that has a longer question, those are always helpful. I like this one. And I'll get to all the questions. Okay. Make sure I got this. Yes. Thank you. Someone said prayers for my dog. It's nice. So yes. So whatever the partner said, if they told you to apply in another office, that's nice. I don't know if they told you to apply, like that's not really great news, just because they should have told you to, they should have basically just, you should not have had to apply. You should just have been able to, for example, they should have made a phone call or something. So that may just be a blow off or something telling you that. And then the reciprocity, he probably or she didn't know, or him. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. That just sounds like the person liked you, but they thought you would be good. Maybe they didn't have the work, or their firm didn't have anything. It might be good in another office. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, this is a good question. So someone says, what if you don't want to play the game? Let me see here. And I'm glad, by the way, the person that asked this question understands that there is a game. So that's actually very good, because it is a game. Fake relationships, you just want to work at a law firm. Yes, so of course you can. You don't have to have, I don't think the relationships are fake. I think that you should actually have interest in working with getting work. But if you just want to do the work, that's perfectly fine. It's interesting, like the different titles in law firms, the different types of people that work there. Counsel is often given to people that just don't want to play the game. That's exactly what counsel means. So you can, of course, work in a law firm. Counsel just means you're good at the work, like your work's perfectly acceptable, but you're just not playing the game, meaning getting business or kissing people's or whatever. They like you, you're good at the work. A lot of times with counsel, they'll be like, listen, man, if you go out and you generate some business, we'd love to have you as a partner. And the person, or you work more hours, we'd love to have you as your partner. So that's exactly what counsel is. So this is a great question. Counsel is just, you can make counsel. So that's what counsel is. It's just people not playing the game. Counsel is also older attorneys not playing the game, or younger attorneys. And so law firms love to make people counsel make people counsel that aren't playing the game, especially if you're a good attorney. And that's exactly what counsel means. That's great. That's a great question. Can you become marketable, slow legal market without having to generate business? Yes, of course you can. But you have to have a specialty. So anybody with a specialty is marketable. Specialty equals marketability. As long as you have a specialty, you are always marketable. So I would just say to everyone about being marketable and having a specialty, what's so important about having a specialty, and I really do appreciate this point, what is so important about having a specialty is that when you have a specialty, you're always marketable. But what a lot of people will do on their resume is they'll confuse people. So the recent experience they'll think it's a big deal, especially younger attorneys. The recent experience will talk about 3 or 4 different practice areas. They'll say, they'll say trademark, and they'll say corporate, and they'll say litigation. And that's just a recipe for disaster. You need to say one thing. And so you need, and preferably more focused, as opposed to corporate, or trademark litigation as opposed to, or something that's focused, because most law firms and clients are looking for focused people. I want to just I want you to think, I like comparing the medical profession to the legal profession. So if you were looking, anytime someone, and I talk about this a lot, but this point needs to be talked about again, just because it's so important. Anytime someone has a legal matter, or a medical matter, they always look for a specialist. So they look for someone and they say, my doctor wrote the book on podiatry or whatever, foot injuries or something. The people, when they look out for the best person, they're always looking for someone that's an expert. And then they say, oh, and this person treated like some celebrity or something. So they always will talk about the person being the best or the most skilled but it's always in discrete practice area. And then you look at that doctor, and the doctor's done fellowships in the practice area. Everything's about their specialty. So you need to look the same way on paper. These are the only people that are consistently marketable. If you do a lot of things, again, the other thing too is if you had a lot of jobs, say you worked in one firm and you did insurance defense, and the next firm you did litigation and some IP transactional work. And then the next firm you did litigation, a little bit of corporate work. You should be applying for litigation jobs. And when you talk about your insurance defense, you should just say it was litigation related, and everything should sound litigation instead of putting all this other stuff in there, because people are going to be like, wait a minute. So they do two types of litigation and they're an expert in corporate. No, they want someone that wants a litigator. So it's just important to make sure you look like a different thing. So this person did a follow-up, so I want to answer this, and thank you. But there's still a lot more earlier questions that I'll answer as well. Give me 1 second. Okay, you talk about people moving to other smaller markets to get a job. How do people get jobs in other markets where they're not licensed? Okay, the first thing is there's a lot of reciprocity in markets where you can get jobs. There's also a lot of markets where in your own market, like in your own state, where you can get jobs. I used to get calls all the time from attorneys all over the country, but in California, people working in desert communities and in different places. I used to get calls all the time from people that needed people to take over their practices or go work there. So there's so many markets out there, even in your state, like smaller markets that you can work in, that if you're in Oklahoma, you should look at different markets in Oklahoma. If you're in Missouri, if you're in California, there's hundreds of markets in California. So that would be your first choice, would be within your state. And most states, there's going to be tons and tons of places, and there's going to be people that will need you. They're like, when you look at firms, I just want to make sure everyone understands how things work. So you typically have the most common names in a market, which are the biggest firms, and that's what everyone's always looking at. And then you have firms on list. There's a list of firms on BCG, for example. Then you have firms on list, and then you have firms no one knows about. And those firms no one knows about, you can find on Google. You can do a search for firms in Fresno, California that do personal injury, and you'll find probably 30 to 50 that aren't even on list. I'm talking about Fresno, which is a small market. And you can find 50 firms doing personal injury in Fresno. And then you can find thousands in Los Angeles. So a lot of firms are not on lists. The only place you're going to find them is if you do a search on Google. And then you can find people on LinkedIn. There are so many freaking firms out there. There's literally firms everywhere. There's so many firms. Again, I'm not trying to create drama here, but you can get most people do not need to move markets. Now, if you're in a big specialty or something, you can move markets, but firms will hire you even without the bar. The only firms, by the way, are the only places that will not hire. The only places you can't really get a job without the bar are pretty much California, Florida, and to some extent Texas. But these are the big markets where it's very difficult to get a job if you don't have the bar. Some markets, but most other markets, it's pretty easy to get a job even if you don't have the bar there. It's not, I'm sorry, New York. I forgot about New York. New York. So these are the kind of big markets. California is a nightmare because they want you to take the bar because it's got like I don't know what the pass rate is for attorneys taking the attorney bar, but it's low, 20%. Same thing in New York, in Texas, they're worried about people not moving there and failing the bar because you have to study for it for a while. And by the way, if you're someone that failed the bar, and there's always a lot of people that ask questions about that, it's just a question of spending a lot of time studying more than you did. It's not an intelligence test, it's a study test. But you need to study for these bar exams. So I would definitely recommend. I don't think you don't need to worry too much about the bar unless it's one of those states. Most those other states don't care. That's been my experience. California definitely does. Okay, what signs can indicate a law firm is providing a stable employment environment? The signs would be that they're not letting people go, that people seem like they're enjoying them, like people seem happy there. And law firms can be very well run from an HR perspective, and they can be poorly run. And if a law firm's well run, then you can tell if they're by the way things are there, and that you can tell by how people seem, whether or not layoffs happen, what type of clients, the way the law firm seems to interact with its people. One thing that's interesting to me when you say stable employment environment is a lot of times the most stable firms, in my opinion, are in smaller markets. They're in not your largest markets, because the largest markets are so much economic pressure. There's so much, just paying for the offices is insane. But then you have the high salaries and the expectations that the hours. It's just very difficult for a large law firm for them to be stable with all the economic pressures. And when I say stable, of course, but for it to feel stable, where it feels most stable a lot of times is in smaller markets. In smaller markets, I think, and when I say smaller, I mean like much smaller. I'm talking about cities of like 25,000 and maybe up to 100 or maybe 75,000. Like in those markets, like people know that if you lose your job, it's going to be very hard to find another one. And the people, almost like the other people, support each other, their team. It's just different. Not in all firms, of course, but in a lot of them. The stability comes down to how the firm does the work it does, how it manages people, how important money is, and there's just a lot of different pressures, I think, and a lot of different things that make all that happen. But I would take a look at what's going on with the people that work there. Okay, I heard from one of my law school seniors that only average lawyers work in-house. Is that true? No, it's not. There's some exceptional attorneys working in-house. That's crazy. There's a lot of very good attorneys working in-house. And so some of the best attorneys that there are in corporate and other practice areas are in-house. And then the in-house counsel at a lot of these places are some of them are big companies. The general counsel are often coming from big law firms as equity partners. No, it's not that only average lawyers work as in-house attorneys. It's definitely not the case. There's lots of different types of attorneys that are in-house. What I would say is that they're lawyers that when they're most of the time when they're inside a law firm are not generating business. They're playing 50% of the game, and that's half of the game is doing the work. The other 50 is learn how to get business. And so that's part of the problem. And then when you're in-house, just think about this from the standpoint of how it works for an in-house attorney. When you're in-house, what happens is you become an expert in giving work to others, like taking work that comes in and knowing what outside counsel to give to protect the company. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very important role, but you tend to spend more time giving away work than doing the work. And then because you become an expert in that, your legal skills do suffer. When you're doing the work all the time, that's a different type of job. Let me see. What are the most effective strategies for driving more business as an attorney? So this question is the most effective strategies for more business. I think that in order to get business, I could talk all day about this, but I think that if you have a specialty, once you have a specialty, you just need to be seen. So if you have a specialty plus being seen. So being seen means people need to know you're out there. People need to know that you're available, that you can do that, you're there to help them. And that's really the main thing, is that you're there. So how are you seen? If you have a specialty, I don't care what it is, you can do speaking, you can do writing, you can do LinkedIn posts, you can LinkedIn, social media, you can start a podcast. I don't know. If you want to talk about medical malpractice law and you would start something, how to defend how doctors can defend against it. You have to be seen. And then once you're seen, and over time, and then you become an expert, and then people want to work with people that are experts in some sort of specialty, but they need to see you. So it's not enough to say, oh, I work at this big firm and I've worked on several corporate transactions. No, you should talk about how large companies can protect themselves in M&A transactions by documenting blah, 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 and then have 50 different things where you're getting out there and being seen. And so this is the most effective strategy, is having a specialty and being seen. That one piece of advice, if you can do that, you'll do very well. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is a good question. So what is your perspective on working remotely? I think working remotely is insane. I think it's, you can have all the work-life balance you want, and that may be, for you, it may be more beneficial in the long run to have work-life balance. I'm not criticizing that, but if you work remotely, you're not, back to being seen, you're not going to be seen. People that make partner most times in large firms are in the main office and working directly with decision makers in firms that have multiple offices. And it's very much more difficult. If you're not in the office, you don't have the relationships, you don't get the knowledge, you don't get the coffee, what is the water cooler talk. You have to be around others and you have to be seen in order to make partners. And again, you call work-life balance. I personally think that people that work remotely can do very well. And you can certainly, but you have to be able to get out there and get business and do all that kind of stuff on your own if you're working remotely, and you have to make a very good impression. So either you still have to get the most hours, you have to have the most business, you have to do the best work. I personally believe that, and if you are able to form relationships doing, that's great. But I personally believe that if other people are in the office and working there, that's going to be much more helpful to you. Now, a lot of firms, no one's in the office, so that's not necessarily a good thing for you, but could be, so you could work remotely, but I think it could be helpful. Okay, let me see. How can going in-house? Okay, and I think we're almost done with the questions. So if no one has any more questions, I'm going to answer this one. There may be one more after this, but yeah, any other questions you have? How can going in-house help an experienced liar get back on track with their career? I think if you're off track, meaning you're not working, going in-house is a job. And once you get a job in-house working for a certain type of company, that can help you. One of the things I would say about in-house jobs, it's actually very beneficial to go into an in-house job that has in a certain industry that matches what you do. For example, if you work for a software service, SAS company in-house, then you could potentially work for another software services company in-house. Or if you work for a hospital in-house, then you can work for another hospital in-house. So I think getting exposed to a certain industry, if you go in-house, can help your career and help you do very well. Okay, let me see one more question. Thanks for another question. Someone asked a question about mentors, which I appreciate. And I also like this question because it's longer, so thank you for asking it. Oh, by the way, if you are worried ever about asking questions on the webinar, what I do is I never show the person's name. If I do, it's a mistake, but I always just cut and paste it into the thing here, so I don't answer while showing the person's name. So this person, for example, I'm answering now is anonymous, so there's no name showing. Okay, but if it did show up, then I would just cut and paste it. This has been answered before, but how are people getting connected with mentors outside of the workplace who would be interested in mentoring an Inspire student in the process of applying to law school? I think the best way of doing that is probably you can get jobs inside of law firms, you can get jobs inside of working in there, and that's probably the best thing I can recommend. It's just, you can get jobs as paralegals, you can get jobs as working inside of a law firm, and then working for an attorney there, you could potentially find a mentor fairly easily. So I think that's a good idea. I know a lot of people, those run across them all the time, that have worked in law firms as secretaries or paralegals and things before going to law school. So I think that could help you quite a bit. Okay, that's great. Thank you everyone for the questions. And I appreciate everybody's questions. And I think hopefully this webinar has helped. I would really recommend going back, and if you did get something out of this, to watch it again, just because there's a lot of information covered there. And I think this information could realistically really help you in the rest of your career to get much better and to make the right decisions. And it's interesting, I think a lot of things happen just based on the quality of your decisions in your life and your career, and knowing this sort of stuff can make a huge difference. Thank you again for being on the webinar, and I hope this helped you today, and I will talk to everyone next week.